You beat me to it, Emmethy. My first question was, what the hell is this?
It's been sitting in your home for like over a month now, I feel like, or something. I don't know. Whenever you left for Sweden, I mailed it just about the day after, I think. Even before that. I don't know.
Really? Okay.
I sent it the day. How long ago was it when you texted me that your sister would be picking up your mail? Because that's how long it's been there.
Well, how long? So long that I have no memory of that conversation. But I guess that doesn't mean much. I will say I walked into my home and I found this box. Franziska crossed out the return address, wrote M, then wrote, read the label. If you open early, M will come and beat you up. No touch. Only open when recording with M. And I was like, whatever. I don't know what this is. It was my sister's handwriting. I was like, what the hell is going on?
That was definitely some artistic license on her end.
Said, what a shock.
I didn't fully threaten a beat up. That would be too much of like a flight and hotel. That's a lot to get to.
What about a hotel? Oh, flight.
it would take a lot to get there. You know what I mean?
Oh wait, I have great news. I'm sorry. This is such a diversion, but it's so important. I have. It's worth it for you to come beat me up because there is a new place. Usually, there's a specific place you stay and where Eva stays when you visit me, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a new location opening up next door to that building or nearby it.
Uh-oh. What is it?
It's called...
Well, can you say?
What?
Oh. I was going to say, can you tell us?
Shut up! I need a clean take. Introducing Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville and Resort, coming to Newport, Kentucky, 2025.
Well,
just for you.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to be the very first person moving in. And by moving in, I mean I'm getting the penthouse. I'm never leaving.
Even just texted, shut up. I was so mad at first. I was like, what a fucking stupid thing to put in my neighborhood. And now I'm like, you know what? I'm going to embrace it and drink margaritas and have a great time.
That honestly feels like, I mean, that's a beacon. Everybo's going to know where I'm staying when I visit you. So you might as well tell everybody. Like,
we might as well.
It's clear. I was
bitching. I was bitching about it in the mountains of Austria because I was like, I cannot imagine. Like, I'm in this beautiful scenery and I just found out my brother kept cackling and I'm like, what? And he's like, guess what's coming to Newport? And I was like, what? I was like, it must be something bad. And he's like, it's a Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville.
It's something great. It's something great.
At first I was all pissy about it. I will say they did a bad thing and they did kick out a lot of low-income housing that was like very... important to the area. But honestly, which Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville probably hasn't, or I don't even want to put it on Jimmy, but you know, or James, I should call him, but any big resort thing, I'm sure is not without its moral and ethical problems. So, you know, it's worth mentioning, but at this point, what am I going to do? I mean, I guess I have to go drink a margarita. It's quite a development, literally.
I think I'm the only person who will ever say this, but I will make a plan to visit you just to check out the Jimmy Buffett Resort.
I think you might not be the only. Like, I think it sounds like you might be the only, and then as it happens, people are going to be like, actually, Em was onto something.
Like, I'll have the nerve to be surprised by other people are trying to book out the very first night there. Like,
Em, it's crazy. It has like 250 rooms. It says it's gonna have like multiple restaurants, like not just Margaritaville, like multiple restaurants. I don't know. It sounds crazy. I will say I was kind of bitching about it, as I said, in the beautiful mountainscape of Austria. And my mother-in-law was like, yeah, imagine like in the morning in your bedroom, like you open the blinds or no, sorry, at night you're like going to sleep and there's just this flashing and it's like the parrot like beaconing, the stupid neon parrot. And I'm like, oh my God, that's my future. There's going to be fucking like neon parrot flashing in my face.
Did you ever go to a cheeseburger in paradise?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh,
I mean, I know the song.
So he's really also like of the business acumen, it seems.
Oh, because for sure. He's all over it.
he had a restaurant chain for a long time called Cheeseburger in Paradise, where they
Oh.
sold cheeseburgers, and the whole place was Paradise themed. It was amazing, and
That's
I
like a
feel
very
like
easy one-to-one business idea, I feel like.
it was like a no brainer. And so,
Yeah.
and by the way, it was delicious. And so, they used to have one in my hometown, and then I guess it didn't do so hot. Whoops! It's because I left. I moved
I was
to
gonna
Boston.
say,
They
yeah, you
lost all their
probably brought all
business.
the business away.
Well, so I wonder if they're gonna revive that and have a Cheeseburger in Paradise in that hotel.
Oh, I mean, probably. It said multiple restaurants, and I was like, what possible multiple restaurants? Okay, that makes sense.
All of his, yeah.
Yeah,
Margaritaville.
yeah.
They also he has I think a bar brand named Margaritaville.
Oh yeah, that one I know is for sure because that's like the main chain. I've been to those before.
Jimmy Buffet.
It's gonna be
my God.
something else, and it's like right on the river, so people are gonna flock to it.
Christine, if one of the restaurants is not a Jimmy Buffett buffet, I'll fucking lose my mind.
If the breakfast at the Jimmy Buffett Resort is not a buffet style, they've done it so wrong.
If they don't call it the Jimmy Buffet, I'm through with this world. I'm through.
Wait, then you know what? Then first of all, he's failed at business and life if he does not come up with that. Second of all, we have succeeded and we're gonna move in next door and open up the Jimmy
Eva,
Buffet.
Get me Jimmy Buffet. I need to talk to him. Also, why isn't there like
Get James on the horn.
Why on Bob's Burgers isn't there like a person named Jimmy Buffet to like make fun of Jimmy Buffett? Like he lives on the island.
It's pretty good.
You know, I mean, there's Jimmy Pesto, but Jimmy Buffet is maybe
Could be
that
his
would be a
like cousin
copyright
or
situation.
something. Yeah, maybe it's copyright. Maybe he has copyrighted Jimmy Buffet.
Yeah, I'm about to.
I know.
If he hasn't, I
Should we
will.
look it up? The internet says, "Did you mean Jimmy Buffett?" I did not.
I want to. No, I just want to eat at his buffet. Okay, wow. Well, thank you for the update. I am buying flights in 2025.
I knew it. So anyway, I'm so sorry I knew that was a diversion, but it was worth having. But that's the context of you are now gonna beat me up because you have a place to stay. But you're not gonna beat me up because I didn't open the box. I didn't even.
I'm very
open
proud
the
of you for
tape.
listening.
Yeah.
So, this was a purchase, and I want to preface. I did get Eva the exact same thing, and I have already
how
had
special.
her.
I feel so special.
You'll understand why.
Just
You'll
kidding.
understand. But I have already had her open it on purpose because I needed her to open hers before you. So you opening it during the show didn't ruin the surprise for her.
Oh, okay.
So Eva knows what's coming.
I
Why
need
didn't
to.
you just open her up?
Okay, let me get sorry, elevator music. I need a knife.
What, a dusty, rusty nail
I
to like
need a rusty-
scrape it open?
I need
know
a rusty.
either you have a dull butter knife, a rusty nail, or a fucking box cutter, like the sharpest one.
I need a rusty staple that I found in the trash. I'll be right back. Elevator music.
Please stand by. We have to step away and go get wine. Answer the door. We just.
I'm sorry.
Wow, there were
I'm sorry. My butt did it.
as soon as Christine left, we had a lot of technical difficulties. So
Okay, no, it was I threw myself back on the couch, and I think what I did is I hit my mic and maybe a button on my Bluetooth keyboard, and everything just went haywire.
Well, thank God we already addressed that elevator music. Like, we're coming back from elevator music.
Literally,
so-
like, what a perfect segue to just shut down the show by accident.
Yeah.
So I actually was very quick in retrieving my tool because I wanted to prove you wrong about fishing for a dirty staple in the carpet. So instead I found, obviously, a corkscrew from Trader Joe's.
a classic from Christine.
Yeah, I also have a lot of tools for my cricket that are sharp, but I feel like that might be more of a danger zone, so I left those alone. Okay, so So I had a guess actually as to what this was, and
Okay,
I'm assuming I'm
what?
wrong because you said you got Eva one too.
is
But
it?
what my assumption was that you got me one of those creepy dolls that got sent to our business manager by mistake.
Oh no! So this is let's just put it this way. Take a guess after I tell you this.
Okay.
This is something I got from my hometown.
I know exactly what it is. I'm so excited. I thought a haunted doll was living in this box for like the last 3 weeks.
No, it's more haunted
Oh,
to me.
it's so much better and so much more cursed. Oh my god! You guys, it's my very own trick-or-treating bag with opossums all over it.
It's a Ouija board possum bag. It's Sesame the possum.
I know. It's sesame.
Inside the
is-
bag is
What
worse
is inside
stuff.
the bag? Shut up. Okay, wait. First of all, okay, this is stuffed possum wearing flannel. Okay, let me just explain real quick. We received a text from M that said that they were at the, what is the possum store called? Possum-bilities?
I'm gonna do a whole little spiel after you open your thing. It's
Gotcha.
called
Okay.
It's called Possum-bilities, and it is a
Yeah.
possum marsupial themed store
In
in my
your
hometown
hometown, yeah.
of Fredericksburg, Virginia.
And M went undercover, sort of, like just like incognito, and
I
was
didn't
like
have the heart to say I'm not
promptly
a
recognized.
I didn't have the heart to say I'm not a possum fan, but I did say two people that are very dear to me are massive possum fans. So
I have a serious question. How did my mouse get into this bag? Like my computer mouse.
it's like you were meant for sleight of hand. You
I'm
tricked
like
yourself.
so bad, but I sleight of hand myself. Like I impressed myself.
I love that a mouse was in a bag of possums.
I know. That's really weird.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a bottle opener. Or no,
What?
a bottle holder. It's a bottle
Oh.
holder. And it looks like a possum hanging
It's
upside down.
Hanging upside down possum. This is the funnest little gift box. Oh, there's more surprises. A y'all means all possum sticker.
They're very queer
Antidepressants.
friendly. They're very
Oh,
queer
I
friendly there.
love that. Oh, here we go. A Ouija board that says with possum hands on the planchette. Come on. The possum tarot. And these are amazing. This store is kicking ass. Also, this reminds me so much of the New Orleans store. Obviously, they have like a connection, right? Like, don't they have like a partnership or something?
Is it with Sesame or is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Because Cocoa Alley Vegan is the sesame.
So apparently in the possum world, all the possums know each other. That's what I was told. So apparently they're friends with Sesame's owner.
I like how my mouse just wants to be part of it,
Yeah.
This one says transphobes ain't welcome in this here town with a hedgehog. I might give that to my brother. That's delightful. This is probably my favorite that I'm going to put on my computer immediately. It says digging for, it's a raccoon. It says digging for trash and compliments. I'm going to put that on my computer immediately. Possum socks with little baby possums. This is
And then
just great.
that's my favorite, the bottle holder, because it's a hanging possum.
It's like clearly crochet, like hand crocheted. Like this is fucking gorgeous. Wait, I'm
And
gonna put my liquid death in it.
And the possum in its flannel, the little plushie I got you, apparently
I love
on its
the
back,
possum.
it says some phrase on it, I think. On the
It says anything is possible. Some phrase. You mean
Yeah.
my new life advice to everyone? Anything is possible.
So, okay, here's the story behind all of
Beep, beep.
this. Oh, God. Do you know, I can't believe I spent money to ship all
The
of this to
pain,
you.
the suffering you must be going through right now.
The
It's
love.
delightful to me.
The love.
Honestly,
And
the sacrifice. Also, look at this. Hold on.
I mean, there she is.
I have such a artists and creative people are the backbone of this country, and
So,
you can
here's
put
the
that on 2020 Christine 2024.
Okay.
Oh, wait,
Here's
there's
the
one more
story. What? Oh.
What the fuck is this print? Oh
So-
my lord, it's a Harry Potter possum.
So there are sorry, I'm trying to get through all
I'm
my
sorry, I
pictures so
keep
I can
derailing
explain
you.
better. No, you're unfortunately very fine and very good. So basically I go home to visit my family,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to get to the spot so I can explain more about that that print that I gave you. So I go home. I already knew there was this possum store. I've discussed
Sure.
it before, and I'm walking around downtown. It didn't even occur to me I was walking past it. I was trying to meet someone for lunch, or I think I was getting a haircut, and I walk past it and I'm like, well, I've talked about this place on the show, and my step sibling actually worked there at some point, and so I was
Oh,
like, I'm gonna go
yeah.
in and just see what this is all about. Oh my God, Christine has it perched like a parrot on her shoulder.
sure. It even has a little tail that I could hook onto myself.
So I go into this store, and immediately I'm telling you, I've never seen I've never seen something more possum themed, and like there were prints, there were backpacks. I almost got you a whole backpack that just had a random possum just sitting on the backpack. Like
Oh yeah.
there was I
This
can't
is
even
like
begin.
what
There's so much
Eva
art,
and I tried to
magnets,
explain
everything.
about the Cocoa Alley. They're like probably similar situation where you walk in and it's like you lose your damn mind. Like you lose your mind.
I think so. I go in, and within about a minute of being there, all of a sudden 2 people come up to me and they go, "Are you Schultz?" And I went, "Yes, you've caught me
Nope,
red-handed."
Not
And
me.
so they were from Ohio, and they
Shut
came
up.
all the way to Fredericksburg, Virginia to see this store that I'd mentioned on the show. And they happened to run into me in the store. And I was
the
like,
one time you ever went, by the way. Like the one day you happened to be in town. I mean, that's weird timing.
So I was like, you really hit the jackpot if like I'm the reason that you came here and now I'm
That's pretty
standing in front of
crazy.
you. And so they watched me shop for you and Eva.
Oh my God.
And as they asked for like a picture, or they said something like, oh, like, you know, they were very kind and sweet, and but it was obvious that they recognized me. And the storekeeper heard this, like overheard, and came over and went, "I'm so sorry, but you know, who are you?" Which humbled, but no, I was a stupid joke, but no, she asked who I was. I was like, "Oh, I have a podcast," and then she goes, "Oh my God, are you from And That's Why We Drink?" And I went, yeah. And then she said, "You're the reason so many people have been coming into this store."
Shut up. See what you did, Em? You tried to be a hater, a possum hater. And did she probably didn't even know that you're not into the possums.
She did not know. I mean, like, again, like, I feel so weird about it now because she was so helpful and so kind. And as soon as she found out that, like, you know, I'd already talked about the store on our podcast, and you know, I was in there, like, all she wanted to do was like show me everything. She's like, "Look at all these bags, look at what we've got, look at this, look, like, local artists made this thing." She was very lovely. She's so queer friendly. I mean, as you know by the stickers, they had like queer stuff everywhere. It was very much a safe haven. And she was very
For
lovely,
everyone
but
but
she's
people who don't like possums.
or
It's a
queer
safe-
people.
Well,
So-
okay. Fair point. Fair point.
And so, but anyway, she was very lovely, and she said, like, ever since you mentioned it on the show, we've noticed like a boost at our store, and we didn't know where it was coming from, and a bunch of people kept mentioning your podcast when they'd come in. And so, all that to say that I asked if there was any way that she could, like, you know, return some sort of favor to the listeners. And so if you do go to Possum-bilities now, and if you mention our podcast, then you will get a 20% off discount on all the retail.
Me?
So not on the art, because she has a bunch of local artists. I actually don't know their pronouns. I shouldn't be assuming, but they have a bunch of local artists, and so they just said, like, I can't give you a discount on that because I don't want to take away from others, but for retail, 20% off if you mention. And that's
delightful, Em. What a beautiful. This is the best sponsor we've ever gotten, and I didn't think it would be your doing.
Me either. And I got to take a picture with the possum. So by the way, they have marsupial Mondays. They have where they always have a different possum in there that's like being taken care of, or like healed back
we're
to
burying
health or
the
something.
lead. Em sends us a fucking photo holding a possum, and Eva, I don't think I laughed so loud and hard because, like, of all 3 of us, the first one of us to hold a possum was not gonna be you, and then, like, lo and behold, we get a photograph and it's Em holding a possum, and I'm like, Em is in a weird sort of purgatory right now where they don't know how to say, I don't really want to touch this thing's tail, but is trying to be a good sport.
Luckily, it didn't even occur to me, but because this little creature was like being taken care of and like healed back to health or something, or was, you know, I didn't have to hold the possum. I just got to take a picture next to the possum.
Oh, I thought you held it. Okay, never mind.
I thought that's what was coming, and I don't know if like maybe the storekeeper could tell, or if like that was just the rule that like I wouldn't, you know, hold the possum. I took a picture with the possum. It was very close to my ears, and
Em looks.
I'm smiling for you, to be clear.
Yeah, you are. It's a hilarious photo.
I was trying to be a good sport. It'll be on Instagram for you guys.
Actually, you are like grinning in this photo.
I knew
and
how
you pet
ridiculous the
one.
whole
You
thing
pet
was.
one.
I did pet him while he was sleeping.
But he's like
it-
sweet.
He was very sweet. I am not a possum person, but that doesn't mean I can't see the character. And the possum was a very lovely, moral being. But I took a bunch of pictures of the whole store, so we can post that to Instagram later.
Oh my
And
lord.
oh, I wanted to tell you about the print that I got you because I got
Oh, yeah.
Eva a different print. So there are a bunch of different possums, like local possums that they take care of, and during I think Marsupial Mondays they bring a different one in every time for you to like pet and take a picture with. So there's Sweet Pea, the possum. There's
Aw.
Pork Chop, which I got Eva a
Aw.
picture of Pork Chop. There's Panda, Nugget, Margot, Oliver, and I think there might be someone else, but I want to see the picture I gave you is of Panda the possum.
Oh,
And I think
I
Panda is the
love
one I got
him.
to meet. I think that's Panda in the picture with me.
Panda's so
Um,
special.
And they also, in case you're interested in going here, folks, they also have things like possum yoga. I'm not kidding. They also
Stop
have
it.
they had a sign that said meet Vega the turkey vulture on a certain day. And then they also have
Yes.
and then they have hedge-ucation and adoption events for hedgehogs. So
I swear. I mean, wow, you
and they
really
have
did a good thing.
and they have the coolest art upstairs. It was all like some of it was like critter related and some wasn't, but it's very worth going. And especially in Fredericksburg, we don't have a lot of like unique like small stores and small businesses. Like we have some, but nothing like Possum-bilities.
Yeah, like support small businesses. This is the best way to do it.
Anyway, I really went on a very long spiel, but I did say, I was like, if you thought you were getting business now, wait until I do a whole spiel where I have
We
my
do an
co-host open
unboxing.
presents. Yeah. So
I love
and
her.
they're very, very lovely people over there. Even the possums are lovely, despite me not totally being
Despite
a
the
fan
eye
of.
roll.
If it's not a dog or a cat, I'm usually not a fan, but the possums, they were very sweet. So please go check them out, and they could use your business. So
I
and
love my
Christine's
little possum.
rocking. I think that is. Would you have a name for that one?
No, does it have a name?
No. I thought the
It says-
pink flannel was a nice touch, though. I thought that
I
was
love
very you.
It reminds me of like Warp Tour.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm gonna come up with
Anyway.
a Warp Tour related name.
We'll shop it.
We'll shop it.
Anyway,
wow,
that's
that
why I drink, and maybe why
whatever.
you drink.
Okay, that's definitely why I drink. But also, whatever happened to my haunted doll that you sent to our business manager by mistake?
That's very interesting because they never even told us. They've still never even said anything, have they?
Not to me.
Yeah, I think they just kept it. Maybe they thought it was a gift. Oh, and now they're like afraid to say something.
Is that why they haven't been speaking to us for months?
I
kidding.
don't know where that haunted doll went. I swear I bought it, and
Wait,
it definitely
okay.
went to the wrong address.
The plot thickens. Sorry, I'm like eating almond butter. The plot thickens. Eva says, I literally asked for it. So Eva went to their office. By the way, this is like our account, like basically our financial people. Eva says, I walked around their entire office looking for it and couldn't find it. She disappeared.
Her two legs worked a little too well. She ran off.
Oh my gosh. Now I'm afraid she's like walking across the country for me, looking for me. What was her name again?
I don't even remember, but I'm out. I hope if she's looking
Hey,
for one
you
of us,
did
it's not me.
this. I was like, I'm out.
Well,
Anyway,
with that very long intro, sorry everybody, but if you're in the area or apparently from Ohio, people from Ohio were able to show up, so I think other people
that's
could probably
crazy, that coincidence of coming there and meeting you on the one day you happened to go into that store.
Isn't that wild?
It's bizarre.
But it's definitely, it was definitely worth it. It's not even like a small store. Like it is a 2-floor, I think it used to be like a house or something, and the whole thing is like possum themed. It's very wild. Anyway, please go check them out. And with that, I've got a story for you, Christine. This is a kind of an urban legend. It has some like actual roots to it though, so I don't really know where it fits. But this is the story of La Lechuza, which is
That sounds so familiar.
It sounds a lot to me like La Llorona, but it's
No, but
La
I've heard of La
Lechuza.
Lechuza, I think.
So they're also known sometimes as the witch owl.
Huh.
Does that spark any
No,
anything?
but I like it.
Okay. Well,
I'm immediately intrigued.
let's crack into it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we getting back to that? I tried to make it a thing for so long. Maybe
No,
that's
it's
what it was. I
only
finally stopped, and then you were like, now I'll do it.
it's only when I happen to have an unopened can next to me. That seems to be
You would
the
sometimes
thing,
be
but-
like, let's get into it. And I was like, come on, Em.
Well, I'm bringing it back temporarily, maybe permanently, probably temporarily, because I
We've been
can't
looking for some
ever
new
be consistent.
merch slogans. No, I'm kidding.
Here's one. My Bevragino Pellegrino is back for another episode. So
I'm vetoing that immediately.
why? I think you just don't like that you didn't create it. That's all.
No, sure. Let's go with that.
So La Lechuza is from Mexican folklore. She's also seen not just around Mexico, but in Southern California, the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. She kind of apparently is popping around in a bunch of different spots. So, Lechuza is a Spanish word for owl. It is one of the many words for owl.
Maybe that's why I know it. Maybe I just have too many bird books.
Oh, I didn't
Like,
even think about
literally.
that. What's a group of owls?
The Hootenanny.
That's hysterical.
Thank you. I don't know.
A hoot.
Didn't we talk about this already?
Not about owls, I don't
Ooh,
think.
a parliament.
Oh my god, so regal. Oh my god.
Wow, so
Okay.
wise and so regal. I feel like that's
Okay, but
Parliament giving themselves a little too much credit.
Oh, because they're so wise.
Right.
A hootenanny's hysterical. We have to bring
Thank
that
you.
in.
Let's make a petition.
So, lechuza is one of the Spanish words for owl, but cultures all over have some sort of like owl themed omen to, their culture.
Right.
So owls are often seen as like a dark creature or a mysterious creature or some sort of threatening omen. It's seen in the Bible. It's seen in Aztec and Mayan culture. It's seen in pre-Incan civilizations. It's seen in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. It's seen in China, Egypt, Argentina, Korea. I mean, there's
Wow.
everywhere seems to have something about owls. In Mexican lore, barn owls are often most associated with the devil and evil magic.
Oh.
And allegedly, barn owls and cats, I assume it's probably just all owls, but especially barn owls and cats can actually be witches who have made deals with the devil.
That's so sad for them. But okay.
I don't imagine just being a fucking cat and you're like,
Just
yo,
leave
what?
me alone.
It's like, it's not my fault. So although Lechuza literally means owl, La Lechuza is a specific known figure. Sometimes she's considered a cryptid or an urban legend, but she does have a long history with indigenous roots. So this is again where I like tread lightly because there's only I don't know where it ends and where the other begins. But
Yeah.
So in more of the lore side of things, La Lechuza is often a barn owl, sometimes just a general owl. I've heard that it's either a jet black owl or a pure white owl. So it seems like there's quite a spectrum here as a bird. I even saw in one source that sometimes it's even an eagle in rare occasions.
Oh, come on.
Like, I like how in rare occasions it's a rarer bird, but okay. So often a barn owl has very pale feathers and huge dark eyes. And she can be 100% an owl, or she can be a hybrid of an owl and a woman with an owl's body and a woman's face with long white hair.
Ooh, spooky.
She's known to be very large. Sometimes she's 7 feet tall with a 15-foot wingspan. So she's a big girl.
Jeez.
And sometimes she can be... I'm going to say the word sometimes probably the most in my life today because
Okay.
there's
You can say,
so...
wait, here, try this. Occasionally. Every now and then.
Thank you. I was that kid who actually brought a thesaurus to class because I just would just lean into one word and ride that high.
I remember when people would figure out that you could do right click like synonyms on Microsoft Word. And I remember there was one girl who had to be called out because she would like just right click and then find like the most obscure word, and our teacher would be like, half the time that's not even like what you're saying. You're just picking the longest word.
She pulled a Joey Tribbiani.
Yeah. Which she's like, this sounds smart.
He said something in like he was like writing a letter, and he was trying to say like, my heart's very full, and he said like, I have an oversaturated aortic pump or something crazy.
Yeah. It was like that, and our teacher was like, I know you're not writing this. I know that's not a word you know. And she's like, yes, it is.
Well, so insert sometimes, every now and then, occasionally. Just based on different regions versions of the story, La Lechuza can sometimes be can be a full owl of any kind. Apparently, it can be a hybrid between a man or a woman and an owl. Sometimes they actually say that La Lechuza is actually a shapeshifter who switches between human during the day and an owl
that
at
would
night.
explain some of the mix-ups or the confusion, I guess.
Yeah, I think. I mean, that of what doesn't logically make full sense. It's still. It's like, oh, they can walk around during the day unassuming, and then at night,
Right.
Yeah, makes sense. She's also known as the witch owl, but it sounds like that is not the phrase of choice, because it implies that you can spot this person because of their like witchy stereotype. Because
Oh,
so La Lechuza is known to be, for the most part, an older looking woman, and kind of just has some like whatever the trope of a witch features.
warts.
Warts, green skin. I don't know.
Cool.
They don't actually say she has green skin. I'm going off of the Wicked Witch of the West. But they say that by calling her a witch owl, it implies that you can guess who La Lechuza is in her human form because she looks like a witch. But it's more, it's not about her looks. It's more about like her witchy capabilities and her magical powers and the gifts that she has. So anyone could be La Lechuza. It doesn't matter if she looks like a witch or not. But and to say witch owl implies that you could clock them when you can't.
I see. But you don't even know. Nice try.
Exactly. So even though she's often described as an older woman, anyone could be La Lechuza, and just it doesn't have to be a stereotype.
You hear that,
of
kids?
the witch.
Anything is possible.
You mean Possum-bil?
Oh my God! Wait a second, Em. Anything is possible. You're so right, Em. I'm so glad that you have now made that motto your life's work.
Well,
Thank
anything for a small business, my friends. So instead, it's more that La Lechuza sometimes isn't even an actual owl, but can. This is just another theory: is that La Lechuza is not an owl, but can possess owls to do her bidding.
Okay.
So it's kind of in the territory of like familiars.
Yeah.
And it's kind of in the territory of like an astral travel or something, because in this version, La Lechuza just kind of lays down and meditates until she is able to spiritually take over the owl while her body, her physical body, lays somewhere.
That's very cool. And so, but it's like any owl, right? It's not like a familiar where she has like one owl. It's like
exactly.
She's got to find an owl.
It sounds like she can take over any owl, but maybe she's like walking in the woods one day and sees one she likes, and she's like, "That's the one I'm going to take over every time."
With me.
So then maybe it becomes her familiar. But I don't know, like I don't know how animal consent works in that way. I look, I'm digging too hard into it, but
yeah, wow.
I was just like, is the owl chill with this? I don't know. In many stories, La Lechuza is known to be very vengeful, very dangerous, but different regions all have different backstories for her. So she is often seen as a scorned woman turned bad. Some say she was wrongfully blamed for a crime in her town, and the way that her community responded was that they killed her child.
Oh, what?
So I don't know what crime she committed, but apparently
Jesus.
it was enough for them to want to hurt her kid. And so because of that, one of her, trademarks now is that she goes after other people's children.
Oh.
She's especially known to take children who are out late when they're not supposed to be, or she can even try to draw them out so she can take the child for herself. One story is that La Lechuza sold her soul to the devil for some magical power, which she now uses to take control of the townspeople. In another version, she was actually a good magical healer, but because witchcraft was so associated with devil worship, she ended up being punished anyway, even though she was a good person. And because of that, the town came together to try to kill her, and now she comes back as an owl to get revenge. In a different version, her child was killed by a drunk driver.
Oh.
And so this, I think there's probably this feels like a more modern version.
Yeah, already.
Because I think in these areas where this is the story, people will say, don't drive drunk or La Lechuza will come find you.
I see. I mean, that's
So it's-
actually a very good like moral of the story. Like, I'll go with that version if it does any good, you know?
Yeah. They say that her kid was killed by a drunk driver, and so now as an owl at night, she flies between different bars and lurks outside waiting for drunk people so she can attack them or something like that.
Okay.
La Lechuza is also said to be drawn to negative emotions, especially anger. So if you are in a negative headspace, she is more likely to come find you. She will apparently lurk between like houses to see if there's any like arguments going on in the house, or if she hears yelling, she will approach. Allegedly, if she goes to a house and hears a couple fighting, if the couple comes outside at all during their spat before they've made up, she will pick them up and carry them back to her lair, which, like, I don't even know what this lair looks like. Is it a nest?
Whoa. I
don't-
hate to make this a connection, but I just can't help notice it. The story of the staircase murder, where the defense was that an owl attacked her and it got the husband off on the charge. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
Weird.
Interesting.
Just a thought.
I don't know where to go from there, but I want to think about it harder. But I also have a podcast to record, so I can't be silent
it's
like
the
I want to
never-ending
be
problem, you know,
with my thoughts. Something to chew on after we're done recording. If you want to get her attention, apparently whistling will summon her, which it sounds like you just have to be a drunk driver, an unattended child, or a yeller.
Or mad. Yeah.
But also, if you want to get her attention and none of those things work, you can whistle. That usually summons her, especially if it's at midnight and you whistle 3 times.
Oh, interesting.
Whistling has been said to be an omen, like, way before this, so it's not much of a surprise that whistling is involved. Many cultures believe that nighttime whistling summons spirits. I know in like mountainous areas, a lot of people that have lore say like don't whistle in the woods. Also, different regions think that whistling can summon the devil. It can lure ghosts to follow you home. It can attract bad luck. Some people have said if you whistle at night, then like your house can burn down, or you lose all your money, or someone's going to get sick.
Why doesn't anyone warn me about this? I mean, I can't really whistle, so I'm fine, but nobody warned me of that.
It's a gift that I don't know how to whistle because I'd get myself into some trouble.
Me too. I'm like, thank goodness.
I had a teacher in 7th grade. That man could whistle like it was no one's business. I still think about it.
He would come to school covered in feathers, and it looked like he lived in a lair of an owl. I don't know how that's happening.
I didn't particularly like him, which was so weird because he was like the popular teacher because he was like 20. He was 23. He looked like a lax bro, and he probably was 5 years before.
The popular teacher because I was like, oh god, they think they're so cool.
He knew he was cool. He knew he was the favorite, especially amongst like all like the lax bro 7th graders. Like they all thought he was so cool, and I did not really care for him at all. But man, he could whistle. Man, he could whistle. I still think about it. Like his whistles had like a vibrato to it, and he could like he had a wide range. He could whistle anything. I was just amazed.
Wow.
I still think about it. It's like 20 years later.
I can tell.
I can't. I'll never be a whistler like him. So, some believe that whistling in some way is dangerous if you do it at night, and a lot of people think that whistling can be a general warning of like an impending disaster, which we covered this in the Haunted Mines episode, where people would hear whistling right before a mine would collapse or explode.
Oh, ooh, that just gave me the creeps.
And
you know
I don't
what a whistle reminds me of, interestingly, like kind of going off that is right before an explosion or a bomb, like the whistle sound, like a firework or like
Oh,
a dropping
yeah.
bomb, like that kind of like
The
whistle sound.
Yeah.
Like that to me, like makes me tense up, like something's gonna go boom, you know? So I wonder if that has anything to do with like the lore of whistling. I don't know.
No, that's interesting because that does imply impending doom. I mean,
Right?
that's what the Wile E. Coyote sounded like falling off
Oh,
the cliff.
true. Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if people know that connection or if we're
Something to
just
chew on
something
again.
to chew on. Are we discovering a connection? I like to think we're capable.
I like
of
to
that.
think so.
Some people also believe that La Lechuza can also control the weather or create or warn people of storms, which again brings us to one of our very first rituals episodes. May she rest in peace. Rituals. That we talked about weather witches and how witches were known to control the weather. So it's interesting that this new witch owl has the same
That's
type
very
of
interesting connection.
one story of La Lechuza not controlling the weather, but warning of it. This is like, I guess it's not very modern. It's not very modern now because it's 2023, but to me it feels very like up and coming news. But this was in the 90s, early 2000s, because a 9-year-old was at home watching SpongeBob, which that's the
It
first time
feels
I've
very
ever,
modern to me too. We're old.
I've never heard a more current storyline to a haunted story I've covered.
An urban legend. Yeah.
So 9-year-old was at home watching SpongeBob.
Like you just referenced Wile E. Coyote, and now it's like SpongeBob.
I'm on a roll.
Wow.
So, watching SpongeBob, and they heard a noise outside and thought it was their dad coming home. So they go outside to like, see what's going on, and goes outside and on their picnic table sees this owl staring at him.
Oh.
And for like a very long time, like several minutes long, and then the owl flies away. This kid thought that maybe the bird was there as a warning. They told their grandma about it, and their grandma freaked out and thought like, oh, that's La Lechuza.
Yeah.
And the kid was like, oh, maybe it was a warning because it didn't hurt me. Very soon after this, though, a storm came in and damaged everything but the house and the picnic table the owl was sitting on.
Oh.
So while being associated with whistling, just get back to that, La Lechuza said to try and trick people by whistling first so that maybe they'll whistle back to her. So which sounds very similar to our least favorite thing in the world, when a spirit is mimicking someone's voice you recognize.
Horrible, horrible.
Whew, I hate it.
Gives me chills.
So if you ever hear someone whistling at night and the song doesn't finish, it might be a trap if you think you need to be the one
And
to
then
finish
I'll
out
go
the song.
Because I can't whistle, and they'll be like, forget it.
Yeah, do you think the whistling has to sound like a whistle, or do you think the effort of wanting to whistle is what summons her?
Can you be, like, to participate, Yeah, like, does it need to sound good?
Like, am I safe, or is it if I wanted to whistle and I'm just manifesting I'm just putting in the gusto to try and whistle, am I now not safe?
Is it just the air?
Do you need the high pitch, or you just need someone wanting the high pitch?
That's an excellent question.
I'll talk to her later. So even if there's not any whistling nearby, or like we said earlier, unattended children or negative emotions, La Lechuza can still attack people. It doesn't have to be one of those three things that happens. She will go after whoever she's feeling vengeful for, maybe if she's really child hungry. God. I mean, she's been known to like try to go after babies that, just by grabbing them up with her talons.
Ugh.
And I don't know what she does with people after she's grabbed them. Like, is this just kind of like a game of catch? And she's
right, like they go to the lair and then what? Like,
they play cards? Like, what happens?
Yeah.
She will not only whistle to try to make people finish the whistle and thus accidentally summon her, but she'll also make baby crying sounds so people leave their homes to investigate.
That's bad. That's not fair.
And if for some reason you hear the crying, but you don't see her, then maybe she wasn't there to hurt you, but she was still there to forewarn you of imminent doom.
This reminds me of a banshee a little bit. It's like
Yeah.
Do we like her? Do we not like her? Is she mean or is she just warning us? You know,
She,
I don't know.
yeah. Is she a girl boss? Is she just
Right.
lonely?
Is she just
Um,
lone? Is she a girl boss or is she just lonely? A memoir.
You could be a lonely girl
Christine Schieffer.
boss. Yeah,
True.
totally.
All of the above.
She's yeah, I don't know. Again, something else to ask her later when we stop.
Okay, great.
recording.
When you guys are playing cards in the lair.
I'll whistle to her and she'll give me a free ride over to her lair.
That's nice.
So she will pretend to cry so that people will come out so she can grab them.
Ugh.
But like I said, if you only hear her and don't see her, it might just be some sort of omen. And if you dream of her, that's another omen where she might be warning you about a death coming your way. If La Lechuza wants to be particularly aggressive with somebody, she will literally fly after cars. And then
Oh no.
even, I don't know if it's telepathically or magically, but she will mess with people's cars so that way they have to pull over. She will swoop in front of your car in owl form to make you swerve off the road. But she will do what she can to make you be alone on a dark road at night. So if a bird has ever done this to you, might be La Lechuza.
Uh-oh.
One night there were 3 women who were driving when a massive owl swooped in front of their car, circled the car and did it again and kept swooping in front of their car until they finally pulled over.
Oh my.
And the woman, which I feel like maybe the bird was just like into the light or something, I don't know, like, but kept circling this car.
Weird.
They pull over and the car ended up stalling out. Basically they just sat there and they did not get out of their car. I don't know if they'd heard the story or they were just afraid to get out of their car on a dark road, but only once the owl flew away did the car start itself again and they were able to drive home.
But like, what was the problem? Like, what did it?
I
Like,
think maybe it was hoping
they
they would get out of the car to investigate and then could grab them.
Ooh.
But because they stayed inside, the bird gave up and the car
Yeah,
started
I
again.
wonder if they were drunk driving because that seems to be one of her pet peeves.
Interesting. Another time there was a couple driving at night and their windshield wipers turned on by themselves. One guy who'd heard the story said, "Oh, it must be La Lechuza." And as he said that, the couple drove by a big owl sitting on the road staring at them.
Ooh.
If you don't get out of your car, she can't get you, just like those 3 women. But in other places, she might try to fight her way to you if she thinks that she can still get into an entrance. So she's been known to flap her wings and scratch at doors to get inside. So a lot of people have said if you see unknown scratches on your front door, that means La Lechuza was there trying to get in.
Ooh.
Which is like somehow a nicer story to me than like someone was breaking into your home.
Exactly. Like it could be something so much worse scratching your door.
This is why, like this is not a sponsor, but this is why Ring doorbells are probably important.
About to say, now that we have these video doorbells, man, I hope we catch that little chickadee.
Yeah, if there's anyone has a Ring doorbell with footage of an owl trying to break into your house, you might be onto something.
Yeah.
If there are windows, so she can't get through the front door, there have been times where she's tried to break in through windows. And often does this apparently at nurseries to try to get babies.
Ew. She needs to get it together.
I've also heard specifically that it is unbaptized babies.
Oh, come on.
I know. You always got to bring them in. Don't bring me into this.
Bring that in. Don't bring Em into this.
I'd do anything.
Or Leona, I guess.
There are many stories of enormous owls breaking into closed windows to scratch up babies because they're trying to scoop up the baby and can't grab them and keep scratching them.
So horrifying.
So how do you get rid of La Lechuza if you see her? And this is where I tell you
Baptize your baby.
That's one. Don't drink. Don't yell. Don't whistle. It sounds like we've already figured this out. I feel pretty safe. I can't whistle. I don't have a baby. I don't drink. I
Damn
don't
it, Em.
yell too often unless it's about like Jersey Shore.
It's not fair.
I'm pretty free from her. I think we're okay. But unfortunately, if you are trying to get rid of her, this is where I warn you that apparently anything you do to her, she does to you. And it actually sounds worse than that. It sounds like anything you do to her is a reason for her to just kill you on sight. So
Oh, cool.
there are accounts of people trying to shoot at her, but she deflects bullets. So fun fact, she's bulletproof.
Great.
And then the people who shot at her died the next day, like out of nowhere. So sounds like she won.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad trade-off.
There's another story of a guy named Mr. Cantu who saw an owl following his daughter, and he thought that she might be bewitched. He really took a lot of leaps there with his
The owl,
thinking.
not his daughter, right?
He thought his daughter might be bewitched
Oh.
because an owl was following her.
Oh.
Which okay. Okay.
Sure.
So it sounds like this guy was just looking to shoot at something because he
Yeah.
tried shooting at the owl after that. He thought maybe the owl was bewitching his kid, tried shooting at the owl to get this spell broken, and he used a bullet, which this is some dedication. He carved a cross into the bullet. Okay.
How
Because he
long
thought-
was this owl following his daughter?
Apparently long enough he could carve a whole
Whittle
cross
his
into a
own
bullet.
little bullet.
And then to say, fuck you, witchcraft, he ended up trying to shoot this owl. And he hit the owl in the wing and brought it home.
No.
And then when he got home, he saw that the owl had 2 braids of human hair running down its back, and its beak was actually a human nose. First of all, why do you have to catch an owl to be able to see that it doesn't have a fucking beak? Like,
that it has like braids, like pigtails. I mean, come on. This fucking owl has pigtails, and he's like, "Sorry, I shot at it before I realized." I
feel
can't do this. This is like
I
one of those bad taxidermy accounts you see where like they just glue on some human hair.
it's like an Etsy Furby project.
Yeah, it's like those creepy models.
I mean, I feel like I could be on the other side of like a football stadium and notice if a bird had a human nose and pigtails. But he just had to be sure.
Somebody draw a picture of that, please. Oh, that's good. I like it.
Someone do a loose recreation of like someone just like throw some pigtails onto a Google image like stock photo of an owl and a
Yeah.
human nose, by the way.
It literally sounds like those like "We love the moon," guys.
What? What?
We love the moon.
That doesn't help. That doesn't make it more understandable. What are you talking about?
Oh, fine. I'll say it in a language you understand. Those Quiznos monkey things.
The Quiznos monkey things. Okay.
But they were
You
a
just had
thing
to say
before
that.
Quiznos decided to. They decided to sell out to Quiznos. But they would sing. They would play banjo and go, "We like the moon because it's very close to us."
Immediately I know so much more about what you're talking. Okay, I didn't know, and all I saw was you go, "We love the moon." And I was like, that's a troll. That's a crazed person in the middle of the night. Okay, I'm on board.
Oh,
Um,
God.
Okay, anyway, this little birdie's got 2
The
braids
2 braids are crazy town.
and a human nose, which begs the question. I mean, at this point, if she's got a whole hairdo going on, is her human nose like? Is there like a little ring in there? She's got a septum. Like,
Is that why she can whistle so well?
she just goes pee, 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 like holds on one nostril.
Also, like, who braided her hair? I want to know.
Yeah, that's the magic.
Who
That's
the
the
fuck
real magic.
braided that hair? Because I doubt that her little talons could figure that out.
I don't think any bird's wings could figure that out, which means it had to have been that girl. She was probably following the girl home who did her damn hair.
Oh, shit. They were having a slumber party. Okay, it makes a lot
And
more
then she
sense
gets
now.
shot by her dad, her friend's dad. Jesus.
Oops.
So he shoots the bird down, hurts its wing, drags it home, ties the owl to a tree out back.
Oh,
And then the next morning, the owl's gone. And so he's like, what the fuck happened? And the neighbors say that other owls helped free it, which I'm wondering, are those like her girlies? Like, is that the squad? And do they also have braids?
yeah.
like-
What? And noses? Like, are they the ones who braid? Do they have fingers to undo the rope and also braid her hair? Like, tell me what's happening.
Yeah, like apparently just a bunch of other birds. You know who I'm envisioning? Birdie from McDonald's. Remember, like, Ronald McDonald's old, like,
yeah.
friend group?
Wait, so this is like a whole parliament. I'm sorry, a whole hootenanny of birds with noses and pigtails. Like, it's just like, what? Okay.
They saw one of their homegirls was in trouble, so they came flying down together. They set her free.
Oh my god.
And then guess what? The daughter died a few days later.
What?
The one that the bird was following.
That's
and so
horrible.
So after all this, the dad
She didn't even do it.
So get this. This is the most fucking, like, patriarchy thing I've ever heard in my life. So to recap, this girl, she found a bird. They became best friends. She did the bird's hair. They're like best friends now.
Cute.
They're hanging out together,
Playing MASH.
you know, probably gossiping on their way to Starbucks. Bam! Dad shoots the bird in the wing.
Fucked up.
Fucking holds it hostage. The bird escapes. The daughter dies, I'm assuming of a broken heart. But also realistically in the culture and in the world of this, maybe the bird was an omen in some way to warn her, like, girl, you're gonna die in a
Or
second.
this is a punishment now for him that he lost his child now.
And then the dad, apparently after this, is so distraught that his daughter has died that he studies owls and magic and helps cure others that are cursed by Lechuzas. So explain to me how he was so fucking scared for his daughter that he whittled a cross into a bullet and shot a bird because he thought it was magical, and then goes on to study magic and becomes this well-known healer that helps others cursed by Lechuzas.
Okay, but it sounds almost like he's more not studying magic in like the good way. It's like he's like, I'm gonna just cure people of magic. It sounds like he's saying this is like bad sorcery and I'll fix it with religion or something. Like, doesn't it sound more like he's like anti-magic and he's just trying to squash it?
I see.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I still hate it that he becomes a well-known healer, specifically in this department.
Oh, wait. Okay.
And then eventually he ends up dying, and there's no like cause, there's no reason to this. He just dies in this story. And the story goes that a bunch of Lechuzas got together and killed him because they were tired of him trying to kill them.
I mean, how do you... Okay, serious question.
I feel like someone really took a leap with all this. Yes.
Yeah, you don't say. I just can't understand how an owl... I imagine when an owl would kill you, like its talons, but then also its beak. But if it has a nose made of cartilage, like that limits its attack capabilities in my mind. And now it just has to whip you with its braids and like claw you. I guess the talons probably hurt.
Whips, you know, like hair whipping you can hurt, man. But also you're right, because like if I ever headbutted someone with my nose, I'd be the one in pain, not
Bad
them.
news. Bad news for you.
And also the story goes that he died because he must have been killed by a bunch of Lechuzas. It's like, wouldn't they have killed him the second he tried to shoot at one of them?
Yeah, and like held one of them hostage.
Whatever.
Whatever.
So that's a fun little story for all of us. There's one story too where one man was driving when La Lechuza swooped too close to his truck and hit his windshield. And I guess this guy knew that it was La Lechuza on the hunt. He runs the owl over and like in a horror movie, backs up, hits the bird again to make sure that she's really dead because he thinks it's La Lechuza. In hindsight, could have just been an owl, and wow, that's animal cruelty. This is from a podcast called Mexico Unexplained. So he hits the bird, reverses, hits it again, which if this were actually an evil human being trying to hurt you, that was the right move. If it's an owl, no.
Wrong.
So, however, the owl apparently still gets up completely unharmed and flies away. But I guess as a, like, this was obviously La Lechuza and not just a normal owl. As the bird gets up and flies away, the driver instantly suffers a heart attack and dies.
Oh my God.
So.
Wait, how do we even know? Then how do we know?
A passenger in the car told the story.
Passenger's like, I was just witnessing this whole thing.
Yeah. But yeah, talk about double trauma. It's like
traumatic
you thought you were...
event.
Oof. So, In the 1970s, La Lechuza was said to actually try breaking into a woman's house when all the neighborhood dogs chased the bird away. And the next morning, I guess as punishment for trying to chase off La Lechuza, every dog in the neighborhood was dead.
Oh, I mean, wow. These are like extreme reactions all these people and creatures are having.
Well, so then here are some ways that if you were actually to run into La Lechuza, this is how you might be able to defeat her. This is just 3 different ways. One of them is salt. They say that if you leave salt by your entrances, then she can't break into those entrances. Some people say cuss at it until it leaves, but that feels like you're asking for... You can't whistle, but you can cuss? Like, what?
Yeah, right? And she's like, damn, the one thing I'm impervious to.
They got me. Like, it's like swipe or no swiping. He's shucks.
Damn it. I mean, dang it.
Yeah. The other thing is a lot of people say that you can go to a curandero, which is a traditional healer in Mexico, and their practices have roots predating any colonization, so it's it goes way back. They're also known to treat anything from physical to spiritual situations, and they can ward off bad spirits or break curses.
They have some practices with eggs, right?
Yeah.
Where
I've
you
heard
rub the egg. Yeah.
I've heard even like one of my family friends out here. I'm friends with a whole family of like people that like all their grandmas say that like there's like something with eggs to like suck out bad spirits and bad energy. And yeah, so because one of them was talking about it and I was like, what? That's crazy. And then like there was, and then like yeah, everyone showed up and they were like, you're the crazy one for not doing that. So I was like,
dummy.
oh, okay. Yeah. So apparently eggs are a thing. I don't know if it's like the shell traps bad energy inside or something, but people like will rub egg on themselves. Like
so I've heard of it almost
egg.
as like a fortune telling, or not fortune telling. That's not, like a diagnosis almost.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
Yeah, I've heard of stories. I think on Spooked podcast, which is one of my favorites, by the way, you guys. It's so good. They were telling a story where, or somebody told a story where they had an egg, like they had this performed on them, and then when they opened the egg, there was like a dead mouse inside or something, and the healer was like, you're in fucking trouble. Like crazy shit like that. Or like the egg was like black inside, or just like creepy things. Like they have you bring the egg and then like they use it on you and they can tell. Anyway, it's really fascinating stuff.
I'm looking it up right now. So there's egg cleanses that relieve negative energy. A family's holistic healing and cleansing practice. My grandmother called me to treat the unbroken egg in conjunction with a prayer. Yeah, there's too much to like get into it here, but there's a whole thing on nursing.
Oh, here.
Clio.org.
It's called oomancy, or ovomancy, divination by eggs. So you essentially can either read the shapes, sort of like tea leaves, but like the shape of a yolk or an egg white.
Oh, there's also, okay, so this is from popsugar.com, but it's also Latina Bruja's Guide to an Egg Cleanse.
Yes.
An egg cleanse is a pretty straightforward ritual that packs a lot of power. In Latinx culture, an egg cleansing is deeply rooted in respect for its ability to remove dark and dense energies. The process can be performed by a healer, spiritual practitioner, or even yourself, or apparently your grandma. You don't need to have superpowers to start incorporating these little cleansings.
Oh my God, can I read this? Sorry, I feel like this relates to like reverberates probably with so many of our listeners. I know we've had people write in about like egg cleanses and things and tell us in person. It says, you've likely landed here because of some childhood nostalgia. You've recently recalled a past memory of your abuela or a family member who used to perform the egg limpia on you and all your primas. You had no clue what was happening or had any feeling that it was brujeria or negative. It was just a thing your family did. Which I'm like, that feels like something in my family where I'm like, oh, that's just not the egg, but something different. Like, oh, I don't know. We just did that.
That also makes sense because the first time I ever heard about it with my own friends, half of them were like, I don't know why we did that. But then
that's
the other
funny.
The other half were like, oh, it removes evil. And I was like, holy shit. Okay.
Well,
so I just always
the other ones were like, oh, okay. Like, nobody ever asked? What's happening?
It is believed that the egg is a capsule that absorbs negative energy from the body and aura. This is why the egg is rubbed all over the body while performing actual rituals and worked over specific areas of ailment.
I think it's
Well,
so cool.
The egg is a vessel. Think of the egg as a divination tool. The egg is going to energetically absorb all the unwanted energy and reveal if it was successful or not. And then it goes on to, I think, show you how to do it. Yeah, how do you prepare for an egg cleanse? How to prepare. Wow, okay. So anyway, everyone go listen or read that article if it's of interest
That is
to
really
you.
cool.
Anyway, so maybe that's something they also do. I'm not too sure, but
I'll put the link to that in the chat so we can add it to the show notes.
yeah. Perfect. Go to a curandero. They help treat anything from physical to spiritual. They can help ward off spells. You can also recite special prayers. And some have to actually be recited both forward and backwards. And different regions use different prayers. Some are actually even closed practices that only that community knows about.
Oh, cool.
Another way, which is interesting, is if you apparently tie 7 knots in a rope and hang it on your door, which apparently is a sign of respect.
Hmm.
And if you're ever face to face with her, people have also done the Catholic prayer, the 12 truths, while tying a knot into a string. You do that every time you recite each truth. So it ends up being 12 knots for the 12 truths.
Okay.
Here's a story. In 1908, there was a guy named Antonio who was farming in the Rio Grande Valley, and a new guy from Mexico was vomiting blood at work. But only on Thursdays and Fridays, which, like, I don't understand that.
Sorry, it's called Taco Tuesdays catching up with you, you know?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like some sort of like religious meaning behind Thursdays and Fridays, but I like it's like coming up on the weekend, I'm vomiting blood.
It's too bad.
So another guy named Francisco, he said, "Oh, this man must be under the spell of someone from his old town." So Francisco, I am now going to do a ritual on you to heal you.
That's nice.
So on Friday, I guess a day that he's throwing up blood,
right.
The other guy, Francisco, goes to a farm and gets horsehair. The next day, he tied 12 knots into the hair while reciting a prayer between every 2 knots. So he tells a prayer, knot, tells a prayer, knot. And while doing this, he is walking towards a tree where he sees 2 owls sitting in it, thinking, I guess, that Lechuza might be involved.
Okay.
Once he gets to the base of the tree, he ties the last knot in this hair. And when he tied that last knot, the owls drop out of the tree.
Oh, no.
So sorry to report this, but Francisco then takes a stick and beats them to death.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Jesus Christ. I mean, like, they're already dropped out of a tree. Like, I think they're probably struggling enough, but
Didn't it already work? Yeah.
Yeah.
Francisco then tells the man who is vomiting blood, "Hey, I've done half the ritual. Now your job is to go home, build a fire, take all the ash and move it to the side. So that way there's like a hole in the middle of so like there's like an open center amongst the ash.
Okay.
Take all your clothes, put them in that little center, re-scoop all the ash into the center and cover your clothes, burn the clothes." Okay. After that, the man then is told he has to go all the way back to his hometown in Mexico and burn whatever clothes he had there because there couldn't be anything attached to him after this.
Okay.
The man does all this, and after the ritual is complete, he never vomited blood at work again. First of all, maybe because he was afraid he'd have to do that whole fucking ritual again.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't vomit at all. I was just vomiting normal. There was no blood, I promise.
Right, like I can't imagine. It's like I can't take more time off of work to go back to Mexico to do part of this. Like I have to be here, and I'm gonna throw up.
This is my new job, and I'm going to be fired. Please
also,
leave me alone.
Also, like maybe he never threw up blood again because he just after the weekend was like fucking fine. Like maybe I'm not saying the ritual did or didn't work. I'm saying though, like there are other reasons why maybe he never vomited.
Why perhaps
blood.
Yeah.
It's like the old timey stories of like, oh well, if you take this like this crazy chemical liquid for 14 days, you won't have a cold by the end. And it's like, yeah, because 14 days later, the
Yeah.
cold is gone.
Yeah, it's magic.
Um,
No, and I'm not trying to also bash this ritual practice at all. I'm just salty that he beat 2 birds to death. And I'm not happy about it. And I feel like it
Exactly.
didn't need to go that way, you know?
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, it's not that the ritual did or didn't work. I'm just saying there could be other circumstances for why it didn't
Yeah.
happen again.
Yeah, perhaps.
Another story is that from the early 1900s, a woman used to turn into an owl at night and fly around practicing witchcraft, and the neighbors wanted that to stop. So they were like, we're so tired of this.
Why is that so funny? I don't know.
So they got together to pray her down,
Uh-oh.
like from the sky where she's flying around. They got underneath her while she's like flying in a circle, and they
Okay.
literally somehow in this story prayed her down, like their prayers tugged her back down
Powerful.
and like gravity defying.
Oh, it is like that song from Wicked.
Yes, she like a witch.
Mm-hmm.
So when she finally is tugged all the way back down to the ground, she becomes human again. Their prayer is so powerful. Wow.
That's amazing. The power of prayer. You know what I mean? TMP.
And
It works.
she becomes human again, starts begging for mercy and says, I have a kid. I promise I'll never practice witchcraft again. And so they spare her. And then apparently the epilogue is that her son ends up growing up to do witchcraft, which is hysterical to me.
Oh.
So that's another story. You might know if someone is La Lechuza if an owl is hit in the wing or the leg or somewhere on their body, and the next day a woman in town has the same injuries in the same spot. So that's how you know. That's how you know. Legend also says that owls gather in groups of 7, no more than 7, apparently. 7 is the max.
No more in the Hootenanny. There's no more room.
7 per Hootenanny. And they get together, and I love this. This is so like girly energy. Apparently, the legend goes that owls gather together in groups of up to 7 to discuss important matters. Like, I love that it's just like gossip hour.
That's called the Parliament, though. Like, that one's not the Hootenanny. Like, the Hootenanny's after hours.
Well, it depends on if they're talking about politics or if like they're a little fucked up, you know?
Yeah,
like, if
exactly. Hootenanny's for card game time.
yeah, if they're a little fucked up, that's a Hootenanny. But if they're like talking about like the king,
Things are serious right now. It's a Parliament.
But anyway, apparently the more owls in a group, the more dangerous they are, which truly does just sound like a Mean Girls squad. Like, the more Mean Girls in a group of Mean Girls, the more dangerous it can be for you.
Like, for sure. And I'm threatened just thinking about it, you know? I feel threatened.
Think about a Hootenanny of like 7 13-year-olds. You would not
No.
fucking get near them.
Think about how many braids between them. So many braids, and they're all French braids, and they're all fishtails. They're all the cool ones from the Klutz book that I never learned how to do.
The Klutz book. Why did you first of all, how dare you know in your heart that we all know what you're talking about without any questions?
Because you've deeply triggered me with your comments on Mean Girls. I can't get over it.
Klutz book. Truly, how dare you? That felt so fucking violating
It's
to
such
like
a pull. I'm sorry.
that was really bold of you to assume I would. It's like I didn't give you consent to reach into the folds of my brain like that.
I'm so sorry. It was like a lot to throw at you. I'm sorry.
You just said Klutz book, and all of us kind of went, ah.
I'll warn you next time, okay? I'm sorry.
So, another story of it is that a farmer once heard laughed. This is from if the Hootenanny of 7 owls are how dangerous they are in numbers.
Right.
One farmer once was walking by a tree and heard laughter coming from the tree, turned to look and saw a bunch of owls laughing out loud together.
And
he
him,
took off.
probably. Oh.
Again, is that not Mean Girl energy? Like,
yeah, no, it is. Like, they're clearly laughing at you, not with you. And that's hurtful.
if I were at a Starbucks right now and I saw 3 teenagers laughing and then I looked over and they looked at me and kept laughing, I would literally just fall off the face of the earth.
Literally, my heart just sank into my stomach. Like, I'm scared of that.
So owls are mean girls, but like we kind of love that for them, unless like you're the victim, you know?
Right. Like, I'll stay far away, but good for you.
Yeah, exactly. So if La Lechuzas are actually owls that are possessed, remember the one theory is that someone is possessing them versus being a shapeshifter.
A bunch of witches.
Mm-hmm. So
in there.
And one of the thoughts is if you kill the owl being possessed, you will also kill the witch at a remote location that's possessing it.
Okay.
So that's one of the ways. That's why everyone's killing all these fucking birds and like hitting them with their car and beating them with sticks. It's because they
want to murder people. Got it.
Bingo, you nailed it.
Nailed it.
So if you try to kill an owl, or if you do kill an owl and someone in your town dies mysteriously that same day, they might have been a Lechuza and you didn't know.
Interesting.
I feel so stupid by saying Lechuza. I know how stupid that is.
Lechuza.
In the 1950s, locals were trying to kill Lechuza in their town and did it by using a child as bait.
Oh Lord.
And it came when the owl swooped down, they tried to shoot at it, but it survived.
Oh my God.
And the next day, they went to the house of the woman they thought was Lechuza, and she in fact did have a bandaged leg. So, but like if you
It's just like classic, like, see?
it's the most like self-fulfilling prophecy or whatever that's
Yes.
called.
Yeah.
Or it's like circular thinking and so I don't know. But also if you were trying to kill Lechuza and you knew she was Lechuza, why didn't you just kill her since you're so cool with murdering for no reason?
Right, since it doesn't seem to matter.
So despite stories of Lechuza being evil, some say that most say she stemmed from indigenous people's spirituality. And some say in particular, it's indigenous people's spiritual partnerships with animals such as owls.
Oh, okay.
And that's where the beginning of this all comes from. So in this theory, when the Spanish colonized and enforced Catholicism on Mexico, they also condemned indigenous spirituality. Therefore, relationships with animals became a bad thing. And the association between
Classic.
animals and spirituality ended up warping into something very dark. So
Right.
once the associations were set in place that the devil is like in cahoots with nocturnal animals,
Right.
then owls became omens and Lechuza became evil.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, owls were seen as omens across multiple cultures, even pre-colonization. So some think that this theory isn't right because owls being bad has been a thing since before this. Owls being scary and dark in some way has been a thing forever. So it's
Right.
unsure if Lechuza was good pre-colonization and then twisted into something else, or if she was always ominous. But some say that owls can be both good and bad, and either way, Lechuza is someone many cultures and legends say to be on the lookout for. So that is Lechuza.
Whoa. What a freaking doozy,
It's a good one.
I swear, you said the word. I was like, I feel like I've heard of that. I did not know all of that for sure. That was news to me.
Well, I'm glad I could give you something to chew on.
You did. I am reeling a little bit. That was quite a lot of chaos that just happened in the last hour. Well, I have to tell you, that I have probably one of the wildest stories I've ever covered, I think.
I love
Like-
when you have wild stories.
It is like I just don't even know where I'll just begin. I was gonna say I don't know where to begin, so I'll just begin.
Okay,
This is
that's
the
usually how it works.
story. Oh yeah, that usually does the trick. So let's hope. This is the story of Malcolm McArthur.
Okay.
Malcolm McArthur's grandparents moved from Scotland to County Meath, Ireland in 1906, and they had actually come from wealth. And when they moved, they purchased a 180
Achy breaky.
180-acre estate. And despite their wealth, they kind of had a hard time inserting themselves into the new community. Nobody knew anything about them. This was kind of olden days where you couldn't just hop on Bumble BFF and make a pal. So it was a struggle to get acquainted with their neighbors. So Malcolm, who was born in 1946, grew up as a pretty lonely child. He did not have many friends, his family didn't have many friends, and his parents were very busy. So the estate's housekeeper spent a lot of time raising him. When his parents did, however, pay him notice, it was almost worse than when they ignored him because his father was very violent and beat Malcolm often, and once so severely that he needed stitches.
Yeesh.
So, although his grandparents had come from wealth, the family's wealth had dwindled over the generations. So, even though he started in private school as like a young boy, as he got older, he had to be pulled out of these lavish private schools with children's of lords and politicians, and ended up going to just a local school near his home. And even though he got along with his classmates and they liked him fine enough, he just wasn't very sociable. And in photos that you can see, he never seems to be standing like with a group of friends. It's sort of like he's just kind of there.
Mhm.
It's a little bit sad. Like you can tell he's like in the group or the club, but he's kind of like not
That's
with
like
them.
one of the
Socially.
worst feelings. Like you're physically next to people, but just mentally totally on your own.
Yeah, and it's like it's not one of those classic bullying things. Like they did include him. He just wasn't really
Connecting.
so connecting. Exactly. So in the late 60s, 1960s here, he got an economics degree in California and inherited a small fortune when his father died in the early 70s. And they're not entirely sure how much exactly, but the sources range from what today would be anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million
Oof.
when his father died. So he immediately used this money to start living a flamboyant lifestyle. He was always flaunting expensive fashion and bold statement pieces. He would hang out at fancy bars and lavish restaurants. He loved the Dublin art scene where he'd spent time with painters and writers and like rubbing elbows. He also decided he was kind of an expert in all these random subjects like astrophysics. It reminds me of like, I don't know, like I said Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo da
Please.
Vinci or what one of those guys who like just happened to know about inventions and art and like a Renaissance man, you know
A
what I mean?
Renaissance man.
He fancied himself a Renaissance man like Leonardo DiCaprio. Um
Okay.
so
Sure.
he decided he was like an expert on things like astrophysics, like things he had not studied.
I like it. He's
He
like
spoke-
he's decided he's an expert.
He's
It's like
decided. Like he just was like, I have money now, so that's me, an astrophysicist.
I wonder if he thinks that's how it goes. Like, oh,
Maybe.
you just once you have the money, I guess
Like
you can just say
who
whatever
can
you want.
stop you, you know?
Yeah.
And he spoke with such authority that people actually did believe like the things he said. So he was
Alright.
so confident that people were like, "Oh, okay." With the way he spoke, dressed, and spent money, some people actually thought he was like part of the aristocracy in Ireland. They just were like,
Damn.
"Well, it matches." So, despite his, fancy cravats and all this business and the way he spent money and spent his time, he still was not connecting with people. He was still not like that social butterfly. And one person who knew him actually said he was very aloof and withdrawn. He's not someone you can just go have a friendly chat with. So
Hmm.
it's like he was always there again, but like just not connecting with people. Many people felt that talking to him was like trying to talk to a wall. He would only really talk to you if he thought the topic was interesting enough. Otherwise, he would just avoid conversations altogether. However, he would still go to all these parties and social gatherings, and he would literally stand alone by a wall because he just like
Aw.
wanted to be there, but he didn't want to participate in the conversations. So I'm like, I mean, to an extent, I get that. It sounds almost like neurodivergent. Like you want to be
Yeah.
in the circle, but you're just like, but the talking part's not for me. Like I can get that for sure. And if that's where it had stopped, that would be great. But unfortunately, it gets so much worse. So eventually he meets a woman named Brenda Little, and they become long-term partners and have a son together. And Brenda didn't realize it at first, but Malcolm was being extremely, as we could have guessed, irresponsible with his money. He got what was like $500,000 to $1 million, but he's spending it like crazy.
Sure.
He's spending it without any plan, and he doesn't have a job. So by the end of the 70s, basically within the decade, his funds were all drained.
Hmm.
In 1982, he and Brenda moved with their 7-year-old son to Tenerife. And Tenerife is a Spanish island off the coast of Northwest Africa. For 6 weeks, Malcolm spent his time in this, Tenerife, by the way, is very touristy area. A lot of people go down there for spring break, summer break, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So he's there in this big tourist hub, and he is becoming more and more obsessed by the day over his finances and trying to come up with a way to restore his wealth. And he becomes obsessed with this idea that like his family had all this money, they lost it, and he wants to have the money back because he does not want to work. He's never really had to.
It's like, how do I make this stretch as long as possible?
Yeah, or not even stretch. Like, how do I just get as much money so I don't have to stretch it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So instead of like sitting down and saying, well, I got an economics degree, I could probably use that to help. He decided instead that it would be easier to rob a bank.
Okay.
So, okay.
All right. Let's see where this takes us.
This is where all the mean girl owls in their braids just start laughing at him like, oh my God, who do you think you are? Rob a bank.
Oh my
in your
God.
ascot, really?
That's so true. Oh my God. If anyone was wearing an ascot, every owl, I think, would laugh.
Oh, you'd be mocked relentlessly.
Oh.
Wow. Painful. So, not long after he and his partner and son moved to Tenerife, Malcolm tells Brenda, you know what? I have a trip to Switzerland I have to take care of. So I'm going to hop over to Switzerland to sort out some of our finances. I'll be back soon. Instead, he hopped on a ferry and decided to trot back to Ireland and do some nefarious activities.
Like robbing a bank.
Like robbing a bank. So he is like, I'm going to Switzerland. Bye, honey. And she's like, okay, bye. And he hops on a ferry back to Ireland. This is July 8th, 1982. On this ferry, he is cooking up the world's wildest plot ever to rob a bank. So he stays in Dublin. He avoids all the places where he usually spends his time because he doesn't want to be recognized. Okay, that's a good start.
Yeah. So far, we're on the right page. I mean, as someone who's never robbed a bank, so far it sounds like he's doing it right.
You're right. Like step one, create an
Incognito.
alibi. I'm going to Switzerland, be incognito in Ireland. You've got it. Step one is complete. So right, he doesn't want anyone to see him because then they'll know he's there. He wants people to think he's either in Tenerife or Switzerland. So he becomes, like, again, it seems slightly neurodivergent, like hyper fixated. He becomes hyper fixated on this new identity as like a robber, like a bank robber, a rogue criminal. And so what he does is he grows out his beard and he gets these glasses as a disguise.
Mhm.
And as part of it, he started wearing these like giant heavy wool sweaters. And
What?
it is like fucking middle of summer. He is
Why is he doing
sweating
this?
buckets to create his new identity as like a rogue villain, a criminal.
I feel like his new identity is kind of fucking
It's like
not kind to his own body.
It's like a wizard or something.
Yeah,
It's like a
do you think
long
you're like
beard.
a fisherman on a boat or something in the winter?
You're right. It literally sounds like he's becoming a Scandinavian fisherman, is what it sounds like.
It's wild.
But yeah, so he starts wearing these like crazy heavy sweaters, thinking, by the way, he's going to be incognito. And it's like, you look more obvious now than when you were just wearing a t-shirt. But okay, I guess now you're wearing a giant sweater and it's 90 degrees. So Malcolm spent a few weeks, literal weeks, plotting for this new venture of his.
Uh-huh.
And his first step, this is now where you and I kind of think, okay, we're all on the same page of robbing a bank, and he just takes a fucking hard left in the wrong direction, okay? So
Okay.
despite spending weeks plotting this bank robbery, the first thing he decides is, oh shit, well, I need a car.
Mhm.
So he says, I need to steal a car to pull off this robbery, like a getaway car, right? So he could have just stolen a car off the street. This is the 80s, like you could hotwire something. But no, that wasn't enough for Malcolm. He decided he wanted to steal a car and also murder its owner.
That's
So
an elevated risk, as
it
some
seems
might say.
unnecessary, right?
Yeah,
Like if
logic is on its way to taking a tumble.
that's exactly right. It's about to fly the coop. It's like teetering on the edge of the coop.
Like we could have done this in a more benign way, you know?
For sure. Like if you were just like in this fantasy world of yours, we could have done it a little less violently. But no, it gets very horrific now because 27-year-old Bridie Gargan was a nurse at St. James Hospital in Dublin and happened to be from County Meath as well. On July 22nd, she was sitting in the park sunbathing, just like after a really long shift of nursing, sat by her car, basking in the warm summer sun, eyes closed, had no idea that Malcolm had been stalking her from nearby and had decided to attack her and steal her car.
Okay.
Somebody, however, had taken notice of Malcolm. I mean, to be honest, it's hard not to when he's wearing like a giant sweater and stalking a woman through the park.
Was it the Hootenanny of owls?
I honestly, it was they didn't say anything, but they're like, "Oh, we saw that coming a mile
They
away."
whispered to each other. They're like, "Oh my god, what's he about to do? It's gonna be so
What is
embarrassing."
he wearing?
Whatever
This
he's
is
about
so
to do is like
embarrassing.
so humiliating. He's gonna be
He
so
thinks
humiliated.
he's like so cool. Did you hear that his parents got divorced? Oh wait, no, sorry, that's a bad memory of mine. Okay, so anyway, so somebody had noticed him, and it was a gardener named Patty Byrne, and he was watching Malcolm because Malcolm was moving really fucking strangely across the park in a giant sweater, like weirdly slowly, kind of like he was trying to be like a predator, and
Yeah,
he
this
was
is
wearing like heavy tweed, a hat.
yeah. He's
Like
not being as incognito as he originally planned.
no, he's being cognito, out cognito. I don't know the word, but he's being very cognito right now. And so he also is wearing this like dramatic bow tie. I mean, like this man stands
Please.
out like a sore thumb. So several people had taken notice of how out of place this guy looked. And so this gardener, is watching. And when Malcolm reaches Bridie, he pounces on her and drags her, shoves her in the back seat of her own car. Patty, who's now like witnessing this and it's too late to do anything, watches in horror as Malcolm pulls out a hammer and begins attacking Bridie with it.
Ugh, gross, awful, mean, terrible,
Horrible.
disturbing. Oh my god.
Horrible. So the gardener jumps a wall, rushes to the car, and when he gets to the car, this fucking guy
What?
is sitting inside pretending to read a newspaper.
Okay. That feels in its own way disturbing because it's like,
It's like, I just saw you smash a woman's head in.
well, it's also disturbing because it implies that he knows. Like, it's like, oh, I have to look like I'm doing something normal to make up for whatever people might have just noticed. Like,
Yes.
it feels
like
like
a weird,
he knows
like-
he could have gotten caught if he's already paranoid about looking. Like, he could have just killed her and then drove the car away. But, like, the
right,
fact that he
no,
wanted
now
to
he's
sit.
pretending. He's like playing along.
Yeah, it's like he's like trying to add to his persona he's created.
Ugh. Yeah, it's like he read Harriet the Spy when he was 5 and was like, I know how to do it, and like completely missed. It's like when Leona tries to hide, but she really just like puts
That-
like
that's
a hand to her eye.
That's a pretty perfect. It's like we can all see you.
Yeah, like we'll pretend as long as you're not murdering somebody, but okay. Yeah, so he gets there, like he literally has just watched this man pull out a hammer and beat this woman in the back of her own car. And he runs up to the car and Malcolm is sitting there pretending to read a newspaper with the bloody woman behind him in the back seat.
Is he not also covered in blood?
So he's literally covered in blood. She is back there having just been bludgeoned with the hammer. So what he does is he tosses a few pieces of newspaper over her in an attempt to cover her up.
Which this is not to be insensitive, but like a newspaper is the thinnest material you
It's
could put
just
on a bloody
very-
mess. Like it's not
Exactly,
even
like it doesn't.
well thought
it's
out.
not
It's-
right. It's not like he's planned this. It's just kind of like, oh, this'll do, and it feels so callous and just like, who gives a shit, you
It
know?
feels like it was an afterthought of like, oh, I guess I have to cover
Afterthought.
you as something.
Yes, and like it obviously, like you said, does not even work. So now he has this like uh, bloodied mess in the back seat, and unfortunately, I hate to say this, but Bridie is still alive and
No. Oh my god.
barely. And I want to, before I get everyone's hopes up, she died in the hospital a few days later of her injuries, but at
Oh
this
my
point,
god.
she is still slightly conscious and is trying to speak.
Oh my god. Oh my
And
god. Oh my god. Oh my
it's
god.
horrific. Like this story just turned so dramatically. I like to be honest. As I was researching this, I was like, somebody tell me he had a head injury or like an
Right.
aneurysm. Like something is so 180 about this story. I just can't wrap my mind around it.
Oh.
So Patty runs up. He sees this is happening. Right, like she's still alive. Malcolm pulls a gun out on Patty and tells him to back off. So Patty goes and tries to lunge for the gun, but as he's outside in the heat and he's been working and he's been running over this fence, he's all sweaty. So he tries to grab it, but he has bad footing and he does not manage to get the gun out of his hands. So Malcolm advances, Patty falls down into a ditch, and Malcolm takes off in the car and leaves him behind.
He didn't get shot though.
And no, he did not get shot.
Okay.
He just got away at this point. So he is in Dublin traffic with this car, and this is like stuff that if you wrote it in a book or a movie, people would be like, that would never happen. So he's driving through traffic, and there's an ambulance passing by in like the kind of slow traffic. They glance down and see the bloody mess in the back of his car.
Oh my god.
And this is an ambulance. And the crew in the ambulance also notices that because this is Bridie's car, there is a St. Joseph's Hospital badge on the rearview mirror, like a sort of like a
Yeah.
parking pass.
Okay.
And they think that Malcolm is taking a patient to the hospital. And they think he's a doctor and he plays along. So they kind
Oh
of
my
like
god.
signal him, turn on the lights, and escort him to the hospital.
Oh my god.
Like it's like if this were written in a script, you'd be like, that's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know, like how would you even see the St. Joseph sticker or whatever? But like they genuinely thought, oh, this must be somebody on the way to the hospital. Clearly there's been an emergency. So they turn on the lights, you know, do the right thing, lead him to the hospital. And he fucking follows them there.
Right.
He
I guess
takes
he's like
this-
he must be like, I'm gonna follow the lead, like, or
right? Like now what? Right? You're like, you can't just be like, never mind, I'll take my own route. I'll
He's
take
like-
the scenic route.
he's like, I gotta roll with the punches now and just kind of however the story
Yeah.
pans out, whatever keeps me out of trouble. Yeah.
Because see, like as we've already mentioned, basically or alluded to, like he has not planned this, even though he allegedly spent weeks planning it. Like there's no plan here. He just attacked a couple people, jumped in the car, got escorted to the hospital by an ambulance, and as the ambulance pulls through, Malcolm veers and speeds away.
Oh, well then I hope and pray that immediately they knew something bad was going on.
Yeah, right. They were like, hang on.
Yeah,
that
wait a minute.
That does not seem correct. Then he just he dumps the car and he leaves Bridie in the back seat.
Ugh. Which, like, I guess for him, originally I was going to say that's a stupid move. You should have just played along with this. But honestly, that might have been, for his plan, the best thing he
Yeah.
could have done, because it's like, you're going to be distracted with this body. I have time to get away.
True. It's like at least and that's kind of what happened. He basically decided to go back to square one. And the part that like really, I don't think I've ever said this, grinds my gears about this story is like he decides, that didn't work. And like decides to go back to square one and not even necessarily need a car anymore. And it's like, okay, so you just brutalized and ultimately murdered this woman, you know, for
Or-
what?
Or, yeah, like, or maybe it was like, he was going to turn this into well, that was my practice, and now I'm going to have to go kill somebody else for their car. And like,
Yeah,
I'll do
he
it
didn't
better.
even, right. He was like, actually, on second thought,
This
maybe
was
I
too
don't need a
messy.
car.
This was too
Yeah.
hard for me.
And it was like, I guess I don't need a car after all. I could have skipped straight from step 3 to step 5, you know? And it's like, this just makes, I mean, not that obviously it would be any better if he actually successfully robbed a bank because of this, but like, it's just something so like afterthought, like, on second thought, that's not my plan anymore. So I'll just leave her here, you know? And so really, really fucked up. He left the car with her inside it and headed for a bus station. He decided to catch a ride to Edenderry in County Offaly, and he was going to answer an ad in the newspaper by a man named Donald Dunn. And this man's ad in the newspaper was for selling a shotgun. So he stopped at the bus station to ask about bus times, and the attendant was like, this guy is acting very highfalutin. He has a cravat. He has like a very quote unquote what they called cultured accent and speech. And the bus attendant is like, immediately, I know that this guy is not from here, does not fit in. Something is off.
Right.
But he goes on his merry way and he stops at a pub where he shaves his beard off in the bathroom. Maybe that's when he decided the beard suddenly was not the disguise he thought it would be. And then he took the bus to Edenderry. Meanwhile, authorities find Bridie's car. In the back seat, she is still alive.
Oh my God.
The attack, of course, made headlines the next day, and they put a photo of Bridie as the front picture. It's horrible. She fought for her life for 4 days in the hospital, but ultimately succumbed to her injuries. And now, as I've already told you, Malcolm has become a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
From like a half-assed plan on the ferry to rob a bank, and now he's wanted for someone's murder. Like, it's just, I'm telling you, there must have been a head injury. I don't know. So police pulled a fingerprint from the scene of the car. But because he had never been in trouble for anything before, it was like, at the time, a complete dead end. They had no suspects. They had no motive. The fingerprint didn't match anyone on file. And so they started searching for the killer on the roads, thinking he was hitchhiking and maybe someone had spotted him. But in the meantime, he had hopped on this bus to pick up a shotgun in Edenderry. So Saturday, July 24th, he arrives in Edenderry, and at 10:30 a.m., he meets up with this man, Donald Dunn, who had put this ad out in the paper for a shotgun. So they meet at the post office, and then I guess, I don't know for sure, but my assumption is Malcolm asked to try out the gun, like test it out. So
Okay.
Donald drives him out of town to a bog to demonstrate the gun and let Malcolm try it out before buying. Well, as soon as Donald handed Malcolm the gun, Malcolm turned it and shot him from 3 feet away directly in the head.
Damn. Wow.
Just execution style, straight to the head, kills him from 3 feet away.
Wow.
He barely, I mean, again, this is like the same pattern over and over. He just barely covers his body with a few brambles. Like, he doesn't even
I mean,
take the time.
I mean, it's very much like putting a newspaper over the other one's body. It's
yes.
like,
It's like, why
not-
even do it at all? You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
bare minimum effort to try to show some sort of humanity when you don't have it.
or not even humanity, but just like hiding. Like hiding the body. You know what I mean? Like, even if it wasn't like for moral reasons, but it was like, oh, I don't want anyone to stumble upon this body. Even that he doesn't give a shit. He puts
Yeah,
like,
logistically, it doesn't make sense at all.
no, I'm like, what is he doing? So like, he could barely be bothered to even put like a leaf on this guy. So he takes Donald's car now, and the gun, of course, and flees the scene. This is horrible. Once again, that evening, a family was picnicking by the bog when their 7-year-old son found the body of Donald.
A 7-year-old?
A 7-year-old on a family picnic out in nature. Like,
Oof.
that day, too. So it was like still a bloody scene, you know? So police jump into action, and at one point, there are 300 police officers searching the area for a gun, any sort of evidence that could be linked to this just like shocking crime of this local guy. And in town, witnesses pretty immediately came forward to describe the strange man they'd seen Donal with right before he was shot in the head. People were like, yeah, it was this weird dude with like these big sweaters on. Like he looked completely out of place and very sweaty, presumably. He had this strange accent and he talked all high and mighty. And so police in Dublin and Offaly were like, wait a second, this sounds like a similar description.
Mm-hmm.
So they are starting to maybe make a link between Donal and Bridie's murders. And
Right.
that is when they pull a fingerprint from a discarded newspaper that witnesses had seen him reading in the town of Edenbury. And that matched the print from Bridie's car. So they knew this was the same guy.
Okay.
But they're like, why? Like, they're like, this guy in this one town and this young woman in this other town. One is beaten to death with a hammer. One is shot in the head. Like, who is this and why are they doing it? Like, they just cannot figure out the motive. They cannot link the two victims.
Yeah.
They're utterly confounded.
Yeah.
So, papers at this point are going wild for this story. They're advertising huge rewards for information leading to the killer. And in the meantime, Malcolm was like, okay, I've done it. I've accomplished steps 1 through 15. Now it's time for step 16 to rob a bank.
Mm.
So on August 4th, he drives to the home of U.S. diplomat Harry Biling. And Malcolm told Harry Biling that he'd been at a party at this guy's house months earlier, and he was back to photograph some of the lovely views he admired. So Harry was like, my house does have nice views, doesn't it? Come on in.
Okay.
Literally lets him in, and Malcolm pulls a shotgun and says, give me money.
Oh my God.
So Harry, the diplomat, says, okay, let me go grab my checkbook. And Malcolm says, okay. And the guy fucking runs.
Yeah, this guy. Okay. The more you're telling the story, the more I'm realizing this guy like something is up. Like I don't know if
It's like, yes, there's like a
don't-
disconnect.
something's not clicking the way that maybe it would click for most people. I don't like. Obviously, they're trying to get away. I mean, also like from plan A of like, oh, go incognito, and then you start wearing a costume with an accent. Like that's
It's so odd.
it's yeah. It
And
just
it's not like what a
feels-
person that you would think with like a college degree who, you know, is pretty well educated. Like, it's not what you'd think they would concoct after weeks of planning. Like,
But also, like you were saying earlier, for both with both previous murders, the like not even thinking through like the cleanup, like or the
yeah.
it really does seem like
Like-
it doesn't feel just impulsive. It feels like something's missing. Like
Yeah, true. It's like, because, and I think what throws me. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the first thing, if even in my fake hypothetical imagination, if I
Right.
were to commit a murder, my first thought is how do I get away with it? Not how do I set up myself to murder somebody. It's like
Exactly. There's a weird way of thinking.
my first thought is how do I clean it up so no one ever catches me? And like
I
for
mean,
that to not be
yeah.
the first thought is kind of wild.
And it's weird because it kind of was the first thought, because he immediately created an alibi for his future crime by saying, I'm going to Switzerland. But then, like, didn't plan any. It was like his first thought was, okay, I'll pretend I'm in Switzerland. And that's the end of his, like, planning for how to get
Yeah.
away with it. It's like
Yeah.
he just skipped 100 steps. And I think what weirds me out, too, is, or like what throws me off, is that he spent weeks in his hotel hiding out and planning this. And I'm like, weeks? Like,
yeah, weeks to
if you
plan
told me
nothing.
5 minutes, I'd hardly believe you. But weeks, something about this is just so bizarre.
Yeah. So okay, so now
he lets
this other
this guy
guy
fucking run, like just run out the house, and like, you know, our wonderful researcher Saoirse wrote, I know this is not funny at all, but it feels almost comical how trusting both of them are. Like, this first diplomat guy just lets
both
this
of
man
them.
into his house. Yeah. And then he's like, okay, let me just grab all my money for you. And he's like, sure, go for it.
like I
There's
know
a
that
weird comedy of errors, you know?
I know this is not how it is in reality. I know that. But in a trope, I would say that's like a Canadian crime of like
Oh yeah, sure,
of like, oh, like both
oh,
people
after
just
you,
complimenting each other.
or that
and-
like into the murder. It's like that Midwest like stereotype too. Like,
very
oh, well,
Midwestern. Yeah.
yeah.
But also, so I'm confused now. So is he like just doing murder for sport at this point? Because like he could have just like said, "Oh, you have a lovely home," and then when the guy goes to the bathroom, just stolen his checkbook or something.
But remember, he could have just gotten into Bridie's car and driven away, but instead he walked up to her, dragged her into the car.
Yeah,
For
that's a
no
good point.
reason. Like, if he had just gone up, grabbed the keys, but he had a gun with him, you know, why didn't he not shoot or whatever? So he basically walks up, he could have gotten the keys, hopped in the car, and maybe genuinely gotten away with some of this. But like, why drag her into the car? It doesn't make any sense. So like what you're saying, yeah, that would make a lot more sense to say I'm photographing the view and then steal his checkbook. But no, he has to hold a gun to him and let him run away. Just crazy. So, he finally figures out this is taking a long time to get the checkbook. I think he ran away. I let him go. He flees the scene and he decides to hitchhike to the home of his partner, Brenda. Okay, so Gargoyle's out.
Mm-hmm.
His partner, Brenda's. So, you know, his long-term partner, Brenda, mother of his child. Her best friend
Mm-hmm.
is the attorney general. And so his name is, there's another Patty, which is why it's a little confusing.
Oh, okay.
Patty Connolly is the attorney general, also happens to be a best friend of Brenda. So Malcolm's like, I'll go to his house. So
Okay. He'll understand.
he hitchhikes to his house. And he said, "Oh, hey, buddy, but like some things he sticks to. He says, I just got back from Switzerland." Like he's literally trying to like implant this weird alibi even now. So he says, "I just returned from Switzerland and I really need a place to stay." And Patty was like, "Okay, sure. Come on in."
Wild.
So this is like so batshit crazy. So Malcolm then decides to set the stage, unfortunately. I mean, I think he said it a long time ago, for his own undoing. And that is because Harry was still alive, the diplomat, and could obviously identify him. So Malcolm's like, man, how do I deal with this issue? I know. I'm going to call Harry the diplomat real quick.
Okay.
So
What?
He picks up the phone and he calls Harry. He's like, I'll explain. I'll explain it. Don't worry. So he calls
Okay.
Harry and he says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You thought that was a robbery. That was just a prank."
Girl. What?
I'm sorry. It like cracks me up. He
I-
basically tries to convince him it was all a practical joke.
I can't. You know who else does that? Is like an 8-year-old who gets in trouble and they're like, no, I was just kidding. Like,
Yeah, an 8-year-old also says it was my imaginary friend, and he could have gone with that too, you know, at this point. Like,
yeah.
oh my God. He genuinely calls him and says, "Oh, that failed robbery. That was just a practical joke." And then he's like, "You know what? I should also let the police know." So he calls the police.
He, he's like trying to like, he's inviting himself to the interrogation room so he looks better. Is like,
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, yes. He's like, "Let me introduce myself. Look at have you seen my ascot?" You know? So he basically calls the police and he's like, "Oh, I just called Harry to let him know too, but just so you're aware, I tried to rob him earlier. Oh, did I tell you my name? Yeah, it's Malcolm. So anyway, I tried to rob this guy earlier and it was all a big joke and it's a misunderstanding."
you know,
Okay.
I wonder because it seems like up until now we hadn't seen any indication that he knew he was making a lot of mistakes along the way.
Right.
And it's interesting that something in the last hour,
Yes.
all of a sudden he senses guilt or that he slipped up and he needs
I
to
think
like
it's
own it.
yeah. It's weird because like other people have also witnessed him. You know what I mean? It's not like this is the first guy to like the Patty guy had witnessed him
Yeah.
after he beat that woman. So I don't understand like why he's suddenly so worried about getting recognized. But
Like, and honestly, he walked right into that trap on his own because now that he's given them the police his name,
oh, he
and
literally, by the way, said I'm Malcolm McArthur. Like gave his full first and last
what
name.
a fucking lollipop. Like like now,
Indeed.
like I mean, because at this point they're gonna remember. He does he is. Maybe he just has a lot of anxiety because one of the things I do a lot with my anxiety is I try to overcorrect and I end up looking worse.
Yeah, I know
And
totally
so
what you're saying. Yeah.
and so I feel like maybe he's trying to be incognito and therefore he needs a fully different disguise than what he's used to. And then it's like too much.
Right.
And so
And
this
he's
time
trying
he's like
too hard to be incognito that he's adding so much
yeah.
bullshit to
And so
his
like maybe he's also like in this case now he's like, oh, that didn't go the way I planned, so let me beat anyone to the punch and call and out myself so it doesn't look as bad later.
I'll explain it
But
before yeah.
all that combined, I mean, him calling and saying his name and trying to talk about a prank is very much the verbal version of him trying to be incognito and having disguise, but now he's sticking
Yes.
out. And so I like because now in the same 24 hours, he has outed himself to the police in a way, just like his disguises. They're going to remember that because it was so off.
Oh yeah, 100%. You're
And,
right.
like-
It's like the weird stuff he's pushing in people's faces.
And like he's, it's interesting because in the same 24 hours, he has made this weird phone call that makes him stick out. And if they haven't called the police yet, that ambulance is super calling the police to be like, something really weird happened today.
Yeah.
He doesn't think that like those two things might land
That's
at the
what it
same
is. It's like there's no bridges between the thoughts
yeah.
or the plans or
Yeah.
like none of it connects in a way that
Whew.
makes sense to me. And I don't know how it makes sense to him because it makes no sense at all.
Mm.
So he basically like you said is giving the police all they need to know. Like this
Yes.
guy is fucking
He might as well have given his fucking description and been like, I'm covered in blood from earlier.
But it was a prank though. So
But it also looks different
so
than what I
it's
usually look like, so it's a disguise, right?
yeah, but there's some on my very real mustache. Wink. Like exactly. It's like all of this. It's so outrageous. So anyway, he calls Harry and the police and tells them this is all a big joke. Haha, you've been punked. And of course, the police officer like does not buy this at all. And he hears that there's classical music playing in the background, like because he's staying at this attorney general's house. So Harry Biling, the diplomat that he had tried to rob and failed to, also like, why didn't you just take stuff from his house after the guy fled? Whatever.
Also, if
Okay.
you know an attorney general, why didn't you just go there first and then wait
Great
till he
point.
went to bed and take his money?
Yeah, because you know him and he will invite you in. Exactly. So Harry had told police, yeah, he was this like well-spoken, sharply dressed guy. And the officer is on the phone and he hears this classical music playing. And this guy's calling and saying, I'm Malcolm and I did a prank. And so he's like, okay, I am feeling very weird about all of this. I'm going to call the detectives who are covering Bridie's and Donal's murders
Mhm.
and check in with them. And he said, hey, we had an unusual aggravated burglary here. And the more I think about it, the more I think the fella that did it is your man. So they're immediately having these bridged connections that he doesn't seem to be expecting.
Mhm.
Police start canvassing neighborhoods, looking for a man they described as well-dressed and soft-spoken. They told people he was exactly the opposite of who they would suspect of murder. Can you imagine someone coming to your door and being like, do you know anyone who is really nice and normal and fancy?
But likes a prank every now and then.
But likes a prank. Also, like you just said no, you don't know a murderer, but think about someone who would not be a murderer. Do you know that person? I'd be like,
Right.
oh my god, is everybody? Yeah. Anyway, so they're like, it's who you don't think it is, and people are like, what the fuck? We don't know who you're looking for.
What riddle is this? Yeah.
It feels like a riddle. So the man who gave Malcolm a ride, the guy he hitchhiked with, to Patty Connolly's, recognized the description. We're like, oh, I drove him to that fancy attorney general guy's house earlier today. So they go there, and of course they find Patty. And on the way, they like, this is where last night I had half an edible and I was reading this and I was like, this, I need to highlight this because I have to reread it in the morning. And I reread it in the morning and I was like, nope, says the exact same thing. It is so bizarre. I'm like, what does this mean? Okay. So they're on their way to Patty Connolly's house where they're going to find him. And on the way, they intercept a taxi driver and they're like, hey, where are you heading? And he says he's heading to the attorney general's house to meet a guy named Malcolm. And they're like, oh, why are you meeting him? And he said, I have a delivery for him. I'm delivering him some hacksaw blades. I'm sorry.
What? That's all I
And
got.
so
What?
it's like, but I don't even understand. Like, did he DoorDash them from like a yellow cab? Like, the
Yeah.
taxi driver's like, I'm on my way to deliver some hacksaws for a guy named Malcolm. I don't know how that works. Early
That
DoorDash, I guess.
That does sound like if I were high. I wouldn't. I'm not even, and I would be like, "Am I high? What the hell am I reading?"
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I feel like that doesn't make the words don't make the sentence I think they mean. Think they make, and they do. They do. This guy was delivering hacksaw blades, and the police apparently knew what was going on before I did because they assumed he was going to be sawing off the shotgun that he had stolen from Donal.
Oh,
Yeah, because I was thinking
okay.
he's going to start chopping limbs off of people.
I thought he was
or
going to
something,
saw
but
a human being. Yeah.
a human. Yeah, no. Apparently, they were a little calmer about it and realized he was probably just trying to mess with his shotgun that he stole. So anyway, they get there and they see Malcolm walking around inside the windows, and Patty is not home. So they kind of scout out the place, and as they're waiting, he arrives home to find a bunch of police sitting outside his house, and they tell him what's going on, and they storm the house. And
hmm
Malcolm, for what it's worth, gave up easily. He went quietly, and Patty, who I can only assume had gone to the store to pick up like some sirloin steak to cook up for his special guest that night, was left behind, just like, what the fuck just happened? I let my best friend's husband stay with me, and now he's being carted off to prison
Oy,
for murder.
beyond.
So, in case you needed more succinct words to put to that, Patty was later interviewed and said, it is very difficult to exaggerate how dumbfounded I was. She's like, I think I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. It is very
Yeah.
difficult to exaggerate how dumbfounded I am.
That's true. I
So
can't
it's
concur
a
on it.
great line. So Patty, the attorney general, this is when he makes a bad PR move because he had planned a vacation for the following day, and he hopped on the plane and went on his vacation. And people were pissed because they were like, you just housed a murderer, and this is really bad taste for you to just like hop on a trip the next day and not
Yeah, it looks
even
like you're
care.
fleeing. Yeah.
It looks like you're just like, I'm out of here, So in the end, Patty actually ended up resigning because the controversy was so bad, and it
Oof.
essentially ruined his career. On the way to the station, Malcolm was very chatty with police. He seemed casual and calm. Police were like, he was actually pretty condescending to us. In his questioning, he admitted to both murders and seemed to have no remorse whatsoever.
Okay.
So the case against him was obviously overwhelming. They had fingerprints, witnesses, both stolen cars, both murder weapons, and a signed confession. So they were like,
Damn.
well,
Ding, ding, ding.
nailed it. But they were also thinking if the court determined that Malcolm's not violent and he wouldn't offend again, he would probably only serve a few years, because apparently some murderers at the time were only serving 7 years of their sentence and then released on good behavior.
Oh, okay.
But either way, the public was pissed. A mob attacked Malcolm at one end of his pretrial court appearances, and his defense team, they were like, you know what? He has no chance whatsoever to get a fair trial. And the fact that he has 2 murder charges make it hard to argue that he's not violent. So they were like, you know what? Can we put in a plea deal? We're going to plead insanity, and we're going to argue that Malcolm was in a dissociative state and unaware of any of the events that transpired. That's their new angle. However, detectives then discovered a clear, handwritten plot that Malcolm had written to murder his own mother.
What the fuck? Okay.
So they were like, well, there goes that plea deal.
This also like really negates that he ever wanted to rob a bank. It's like official that he just wanted
Great
to murder
point.
people.
Whatever happened to the bank?
Yeah, he just wanted to murder people.
Right? Like, there's no other explanation.
Because why else are you robbing multiple people like at gunpoint?
Yeah.
Like, and then not taking the money. Like, if I were robbing someone's house and they ran away from the house, I'd be like, well, that's a much easier way to rob this.
Jackpot!
And he just fucking left. Like, he just wants to kill people.
You're right. Like, there's no other reasoning behind it. And he has not stolen anything successfully besides a car, barely.
So
like, he hasn't even
he's
stolen money.
So if like 3 people are dead, 2 people are dead, and like a letter about his mom soon to be dead, but no dollars. He's taken no
But
money.
$0. He just like stole another car because he messed up the first time.
Boy.
It's bananas. So the defense is like, you know what? That's not going to work. Basically, pleading insanity won't work because he just admitted that he's trying to murder his mother, and it's written down. So they're like, okay, you know what? He clearly knows he wasn't dissociating because he's still planning to murder people. So instead, this is shocking. They secured a plea deal for Malcolm where he would plead guilty to Bridie's murder, but then they completely dropped charges for the murder of Donal.
For the 3 feet away execution style murder?
Yes.
Wow.
They just completely, they were like, okay, fine. If you plead guilty to Bridie's murder, then we won't charge you with the other one. Which,
Can
like,
you
people
imagine
were
being that
shocked.
person's family?
Yeah, exactly.
like-
I mean, that's exactly how the story ends. Like, that they just still don't have justice. Like, it's baffling. I mean, I literally listed, they have 2 stolen cars, his fingerprints everywhere. He admitted to it. How can you get off? How can you not be charged with something you've already said, no, I did that, and I signed
what's the
a paper.
reason again for why they don't want to charge him with it?
His defense was able to talk to the judge and say, we want a plea deal. And he said, okay, fine. If he admits to Bridie's murder, then we won't charge. Like,
So
it doesn't even
there's
make
not even
sense.
a real reason.
No, they would have easily slam dunk both murders. So it's very, very odd. Very odd. The prosecutor filed something called nolle prosequi for the second murder charge, which is an official abandonment of action, and basically completely took his name out of that case whatsoever. The public was outraged. So was Donal's family, as you can imagine. The evidence was like undeniable. It made no sense basically to drop the second murder charge. And at his sentencing, the prosecution stood to read the evidence against Malcolm, but the judge wouldn't let them. He was like, nope, we're dropping it. So we're dropping this case, so you cannot even talk about it at all, and just completely shut him down. It made no sense. And so a lot of rumors began to circulate about cover-ups, secret deals, like class privilege, political controversy. They've never proven anything, but like people are pretty sure something very shady happened to be able to get this second murder just taken off the books. So Malcolm's guilty plea for Bridie's murder did require a mandatory life sentence. And because the prosecution was not able to read the charges against this guy, read the evidence, the public was even more pissed. And this controversy just lasted for a very long time. So he ended up serving 30 years in prison only, and he was released in 2012 at the age of 66. And for many years, he was silent, and no matter how many people asked why he did what he did or for an apology, they got nothing. And it wasn't until 2020 when a writer named Mark O'Connell approached him on the street in Dublin and said, "I'd like to write about you." And so they spoke for months. Malcolm told him everything about his life, the killings. And so we do now have at least some clarity. Malcolm insists that he did, in fact, feel remorse for the killings, even though he never showed it. And he says he thinks people want him to get emotional to prove that he feels guilty, but he prefers to be dignified.
Barf.
Disgusto. He also spoke about how important it was to be polite and well-mannered. Somebody who just bashed a woman's face in with a hammer. Okay, you're going to be
dignified,
well-mannered and polite and dignified. So when Mark commented on that, Malcolm said, "Well, it confirms my knowledge of myself. I think of myself as a normal person. People who know me well regard me as a very likable person. I have a
Name
high
three. Name three.
Name one.
Name anybody who likes you."
He literally says, quote, "I have a high likability factor."
Bitch, where? Like, what are you talking about?
Where? Name three. Okay.
That's what the owls would say.
Yeah, I feel like I'm becoming an owl. I feel like I'm a wannabe owl, you know?
That's when he said, "Oh, people like me," as an owl, I'd go, "Who?"
We've become the owls. I'm just cackling at your stupid puns, and we're in our little hootenanny.
It would be there'd be 7 at max of all of us going, who.
That is so good, Em. Oh my god, I've like laughed a lot today. Oh. Oh my god. Okay, somebody better make some fun drawings out of this episode because it is long.
Pigtails. Okay. Mean girl. Bitch who?
Bitch who. So, anyway, he says, "I have a high likability factor and I like people. I'm very good with people." This sounds like Donald Trump, honestly. "I like people. I'm very good with people. I am sympathetic and empathetic and all those things. I have always deplored language or behavior that is sexist or misogynistic, that is disrespectful or objectifying or crude." And then he says, and you can quote him on this, "I don't think I've ever been unmannerly in my life." And then there was a pause, and then he said, "Apart from the criminal episode itself, yes, those were crimes."
I'm pretty great, except for the multiple murders.
You're right, that was a crime. Nobody's questioning whether it was a crime.
Before you call me out, that's a fair fight. But
yeah.
Other than that, I'm pretty good.
It was also a big prank, and I thought it was hilarious, but nobody else did.
Even the police didn't laugh. I don't understand.
It's so weird. The judge was not amused. So Malcolm still, to this day, lives in Dublin as a free man. He seems to believe that his explanation, his motive for the killings has been made clear to everyone and that his actions made total sense. He says he needed money, a car, and a weapon, so he killed for them. And of course, the victims' families are like still so shaken and rattled by this. And the fact that he's like, "Oh, I think it makes perfect sense why I killed them," is like really, really awful for them to live with.
Fully delusional.
Totally crazy. And Donald's family petitioned for charges to be brought back against Malcolm. And even though they got 10,000 signatures, it failed to inspire any movement on it. And he still has not been charged with Donald's murder to this day. Of course, they've never let the crimes go. And they said their pain just is never ending, especially once Malcolm was released in 2012. And they feel like they're never going to get justice. So at the time, the head of the Irish government, Taoiseach, which is like sort of the prime minister or president, famously called the crimes. Now, I think this is actually a good ender. Called the crimes, and his name is Charles Hoffey. Hoffey?
Hmm. Coffee.
He famously called the crimes, quote, grotesque, unbelievable, bizarre, and unprecedented. And the acronym GUBU became notorious in Ireland, and it's become a word to signify scandals, like especially in politics.
Oh, okay.
The word GUBU for, I feel like that is the t-shirt that the owls wear. It says
What-
GUBU, and it
it
stands
says,
for
"Who,
grotesque,
boo?"
GUBU! GUBU who? Yeah. It stands for grotesque, unbelievable, bizarre, and unprecedented, which does sound like something the Hootenanny would say
Yeah,
behind the scenes.
for sure. Wow.
So upon his
GUBU.
release, GUBU who? So upon his release, Malcolm returned to Dublin and got back to the life he always enjoyed, spending his time at bookstores, libraries, and art shows, and being a fancy man about town. And that is the story of Malcolm MacArthur.
Wow.
All done.
Well done. But still
It's just
psychotic.
it's beyond, really. I mean, I don't, and I feel bad that I even watched a video to figure out how to pronounce that man's name.
It-
Hoffy. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
When
but
someone has to come up with a new acronym to describe how fucked up your situation was, like, how dare somebody in today's world walking around right now go, I feel like I was justified. If every other person
like
on
I feel
Earth
like, and
doesn't
I feel like
agree
it's
with
obvious. Yeah.
you, you're the common denominator, babe. Like, nobody's agreeing. Like, you stand
You're-
alone here.
It's so bizarre. And then he's like, I've never been rude in my life.
You fucking
imagine
bash someone's
hearing that
head in.
from-
What are you talking about?
Right? Like, imagine hearing that from someone who murdered your daughter, your 27-year-old daughter. Like,
Like,
oh, I've never been rude. I'm such a dignified person.
go to the family members of the people you brutally
Yeah.
murdered for no reason, and by the way, also for no fucking money, and
Yeah.
tell them I didn't do anything wrong. Anyone could have done this. What?
Anyone would have done this. It's like, are you serious? And he's like,
Go
oh
tell
no,
it
I
to
feel
your-
bad.
Go tell it to your mom, who you fucking wrote a premeditated
Yeah, what
murder
the
note
fuck?
about. What are you talking about? I guarantee you
This
she
is
doesn't
why-
fucking spend time alone in a room with you now. And you wonder why.
This is why I read it and was like, I genuinely don't know if somebody bashed him in the head by mistake. Like, I cannot figure out what the fuck happened to this guy, unless he's just always been a narcissist and was able to like pull it off long enough and then snap. I don't know.
It's just shocking that there are people out there who, murderers or not, like, that you just are just awful morals, no morals, and like you're just
No
like, what?
morals.
Everyone understands. What are you
Like,
talking
you
about?
get it? It's
Says who?
obvious.
Says who?
Who?
What are you talking
Who?
about?
Who?
Who? Oh God. Anyway,
Okay, name
great
3
story,
people.
Christine.
Name 3
No.
people.
You, me, and the birds, the trees. We speak for the trees.
Are we
okay.
both high? What's happening?
I feel like I am. That story
think
made no
so.
fucking real sense. So,
I'm serious.
well, thank you for that story. I do love when you bring a real humdinger to the plate. So thank you for the home
You're
run.
so welcome.
And I guess anyone who wants to hang out with us even further for some reason, you can hop
Mhm.
over to Patreon and listen to us hang out during after hours.
After hours.
And we can talk more, but unfortunately our time has come to an end here. I know, don't let me go, but well,
Sorry, I
we'll be
shouldn't have
back.
laughed so hard.
We'll be back next Sunday with some more bullshit for you. And
Oh, I love this sign off. That's
why
we
drink.